5:29, ticking, we're almost there.
Yeah, we have.
Yes, we have game. There you go.
I make a motion to open the meeting. Is there a second, please?
A second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lickett.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, does any board member have a conflict of interest or anything to disclose regarding any of the agenda items before us?
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not. Oh, I do not. Okay, would you like to,
Sure, I'm
Give
going
us
to give the short and sweet
background.
version.
just so you know, this is the open meeting compliance certification about conduct.
And it's a really long page document, and I've been given cliff notes. If anybody would like to read the full one, I'll be happy to present it for you. But meantime, if you're here, if you'd like to speak, please come to the podium or raise your hand, give me your name and address if you're online, which we are using Zoom. If you have a question you'd like to ask the board, you can put it in the Q&A. I'll be happy to ask the board. If you want to do it, ask the question yourself, raise your hand and I will call on you. Outside of that, it's everybody act with decorum and be nice to each other. And happy Valentine's Day ahead of time.
That's right. Okay, with that being said, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's begin with public comment. Is there anyone wishing to comment either here or online? Come on up, please. Yep, sure. Either way, or you can stand in front of either way, whatever works for you. Name and address, please.
Certainly. Hi, my name is Renee, Evander Renee, and I live at 25 Courtney Circle. And I'm here to just express support of the Village Refuge District proposal, and I hope the board is too. And I'm supporting this for a number of reasons. First, it's going to save me a lot of money. Second, the wear and tear on the roads. Third, the wear and tear on the environment. It's better for the green environment. And fourth, ironically, in my life, for 3/4 of my life, I lived in municipal districts who had trash only one day a week, and it was a joy. And I'm really sad to say in this last current quarter of my life that I love this village. And in fact, it looks like my husband and I are retiring here and planning to stay here because we love it so much. But it's almost like it's trash day every day of the week. And at least in my day, at least 3 out of 5, and anything to reduce that, I think, is a plus too. So I really support it, and I just want to express that.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming in. Any other comments from the public? Yes.
Stay right here.
Sure.
All right, David Wilkes, 19 East Jefferson Road, and I am also here. My wife unfortunately could not come here because she's with my 2-year-old son, but here to also express interest in the refuge district. I will say, as new residents here, we've been here about a year, coming from New York City. It was, again, kind of as the last neighbor said, it was nice to kind of have that one day where it was trash day. Obviously, New York City is different from Pittsburgh. But I will also say that living where I am, so on Jefferson and Rand, is a corner that the garbage trucks, for whatever reason, like to cut consistently. So if you imagine 3 days a week, they're cutting across my lawn and slowly eroding the entire front of my lawn. So I had to keep putting new boulders in front to try and stop them. So it would be great to not have to do that as much and replace all my rocks and have to move them by myself. And also the road in front of us is absolutely destroyed from tons and tons of these trucks going by 3 days a week, all the time. The loudness, the fact that they don't care. Half the time they throw garbage in front of my house, so I'm having to go out and pick up the garbage myself. So it'd be great to have one time where we have to deal with it, one local source, and also to save some money. I mean, who doesn't want to save money in an environment like this? So The environmental aspect is great, the lack of wear and tear. I'm trying to find a reason why it wouldn't be a good thing to do. If someone can explain that, I'd love to hear it, but right now I can't. So it'd be really great. Again, very supportive of this. And hopefully we can move forward.
Thank you. Thanks for your input. Yes, come on. Hello.
Hi, I'm Janet Friedman, and I'm at 77 State Street. And I will not reiterate what everybody else, the two other people said, because I obviously second what they've said. What I'm here about is what can we do as residents, or how can we help you to expedite this process for review and for public hearings, so that we can possibly get this into the tax bill that's coming up and not waiting a full year. So I'd appreciate knowing that, and how can we help and do something to make it happen this year. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so
It's a
much.
high priority to me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other comment? Yes. Hello, come on up.
Hello, Andrew Trout, 18 East Street Terrace. Good evening. I come before you to speak in support of establishing a refused district. Surprise, and another person in support of the refused district. My wife and I moved to the village of Pittsford in October of 22 from the city of Rochester, and we have really enjoyed living in the village, enjoying the lifestyle and the quality of life that we have here. Like many other people, one downside is trash service and recycling service. 3 times a week, garbage trucks from 3 different providers are moved driving through the village. We live on the corner of Eastview Terrace and Jefferson, so similar to our neighbor down the street from us. We see trash trucks 3 times a week down our street, slowly moving through the village, backing up traffic, causing cars to idle in front of our house. But we do support traffic calming efforts. I don't think that garbage trucks slowly moving down Jefferson is the best way to accomplish that. When my wife and I heard about the possibility of district being established, we were very excited for it. One trash service a week would be a much greater improvement for our neighborhood. My wife and I summarized the efforts here as an easy win for the Board of Trustees. There is a little bit of work up front, but the benefits are massive. Service will cost all of us in the village less. We will not have to pay the sales tax on the services. We will not have an additional bill to manage. We'll have a stable rate, will not be subjected to random increases at the mercies of our trash providers now. By operating as one group, the village residents can get better service and have less wear, tear, and traffic on our roads. I strongly urge the Board of Trustees to move forward with establishing the Fuse District with all its waste. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other, oh, John, yeah, sorry.
Good evening, John Limbeck, 62 State Street. And my feelings on short-term rentals are probably well-known. My interpretation of the residential zoning is not unique either. Residents make a profit from their homes when they sell them, but in order to do that, they need to make required improvements and maintain the overall value of those properties. When I moved to the village 22 years ago, the State Street corridor was a mess. It looked run down, and it was. And in the meantime, the residents there have dumped over hundreds of thousands of dollars into their homes. And that's one of the nicest gateways into this village right now. Now I have a motel 2 doors away from me. This is a commercial enterprise that threatens our neighborhood structure. And state and national studies concur that short-term rentals depreciate neighborhoods both in character and value. This commercial venture has no commercial oversight and has already proven itself to be a detriment to what makes a neighborhood valuable. In its infinite wisdom, the village planning board allowed the owner of this short-term rental to pave over a portion of his front yard to facilitate rental parking. It's my understanding that there's a house rule that depending on which unit you rent, you park on one side or the other. And we've had numerous incidents where you've got cars parked on the sidewalks. I don't expect any help from the village. In the 10 years that my street's been organized to try to diminish the speeding on State Street, the village has done nothing to help us. We've got another commercial enterprise behind our residence where that owner does what he wants, and he just doesn't care. I've got another commercial venture across the street from me that holds events all summer long. I've got a 4-foot sidewalk and a 5-foot plow. Do I need to go on? I'm tired, folks. I'm not fighting the village anymore. We've tried. I'm looking to move. But I just got one question. When are you going to listen to the residents? Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your thoughts. Was there, yeah, hi. Yep, hi.
So I'm actually, thought I was one of the good guys.
Name and address.
Mark Carmon, and I'm at 58 State Street, I'm 2 doors down from John. There's a strong feeling that he doesn't like me, and I seem to get that every time I have instances and run-ins with him, and I really don't understand why. I think,
Let's focus on just,
I was here with the coffee
Yeah, I know,
conversation,
I
when you
know.
were here on
Yeah.
Sunday. The way that you presented, the way that you did it was very great. I think one of the things, and something that popped in my mind while you were speaking, is when you used to live in Fort Lauderdale, that it became so commercialized, and corporations came in and took over all these properties, and that's exactly what it became. I've been in Florida before, and I stayed in a Vacasa, and it seemed like they really just didn't care. And I never had as many complaints as I had. Literally, the whole unit was falling apart, and no matter how many times I called, and no matter how many people I asked to help, they sent a maintenance man 3 days later after we'd been staying there. Long story short, it was a horrible experience. I've never written a bad review except for that time, that one particular time. So fast forward. These are not corporate owned. I own the property. I have a child myself. I'm doing it to make a profit, yes. I do love the village. I love being here. I don't live here, but I would like to hope one day live here in the village, and I potentially will. So what we put together, and we try to run our property like a complete 5-star.
please address the
facility.
board, Justin.
My apologies, I wanted to speak to everyone. But we try to run it like a full 5-star facility. In everything we do, and I'm with Tim here, who's actually manages the property with me, everything is, we cater to everyone's needs, and we are so attentive and so on top of everything. We've got 2 guests there now. One is here because he grew up in the village of the village of Pittsburgh, and he's bringing his children back to see where he grew up, and he's taking them to different businesses. So that's cool. There's another person that's here that their mother died, and they're celebrating her life, and they're staying with us as well. So, we're not bringing in, I think that was a big fear as the neighbors from what I got, is they thought there was going to be beer pong tables and college kids and frat parties, and it's been nothing like that at all. I think Steve has called me one time in the 12 and a half months or 13 months we've been managing it, saying there was someone slightly pulled on the sidewalk, and it was nice that he did that and offered us that courtesy. But, what we're doing is we're trying to provide something for people to come and actually experience the village of Pittsburgh, and for people that have been here before, and we really will take care of the property. I think the previous person that, there was someone that was drunk falling down the steps, and the property was completely dilapidated, if anyone's seen the pictures. And if you see what it looks like now, I put my life savings into the property to get where it is, and I think it's a beautiful piece of art now, and it's beautiful that other people that can come to the village and experience it as well. If it was corporate run, and if it was, what people don't want, I can certainly understand why they wouldn't want it here, but we're nothing like that, and we're really trying to provide something for other people to love it just as much as you do. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Any other public comment?
Yes, just like to piggyback. My name is Timothy Flynn. My address is 170 Bateman Road. And like Mark said, I do manage the property, but I do a whole lot more than just making sure the fruit is fresh and the flowers are nice and the blankets are clean. My largest role, at least the way I see myself, is cultivating relationships. And I communicate with these guests, ideally, time and time again, as they continue to come back. And they create memories in the home that we've created for them. And they create memories at Pittsburgh Pub and Label 7 and Show and Place and the bikes we provide for our guests and in the backyard where we have picnics and barbecues. But collectively, I do think we provide a whole lot more of a service than just giving them a place to lay their head and to, help fund our endeavor. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared. I just kind of got caught up in the moment here. But the biggest thing I think that I personally try to do is make sure that we want to assimilate into the community. We named the property after Mr. Demler, who was the original owner of the property. We named the property the Demler Estate on State Street, just to further kind of show the guests who come here that we are a part of Pittsburgh, and we want to continue to be a part of Pittsburgh moving forward, because it's something we're passionate about. And like Mark said, he wants to live here eventually. Personally, I'm happy where I'm at, but that's not to say I don't love to visit. But everything that Pittsburgh embodies is something that we kind of want to embrace and show to the guests when they come to Rochester. So that way, they can create those memories and they can continue to come back and ideally become part of this community. So I just think that is important, that we are not just a business, but also, representing Pittsford in hopefully a positive way.
Thank you, thanks for your input, appreciate that. Anybody else here? Anybody online, Dorothea?
I have residents online, but I don't see any hands
Okay.
waved, and I don't have any Q&A.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, everybody, for weighing in. It's important that we do hear from all of you. Next up, building inspector report. Hi, Steve. You all saw Steve's report. Is there any questions for Steve?
I just had a couple. I'm not certain as to the multi-apartment conversion in terms of the zone where that is and the property. Generally speaking, as you give these reports, they're meant to be sort of anonymous to the property. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you may, just for the purposes of residents and myself, could you explain to me where currently a multi-apartment conversion, which zone that could occur in?
MUOF.
MUOF, so the multi-use office. Okay. Is it also possible in the Erie Canal, the multi-use Erie Canal?
I don't believe so. I'd have to look at, so I think MUOF is the only multi, and that is under special permit.
Okay. And is that, is the multi-use office by permit or by special permit?
The multi-residential is by special permit.
Yep. But the multi-apartment, so going from a single family to a dual family,
That's special permit.
that's special permit.
Yeah.
So,
It's residential.
all right. So in this particular instance, would this be something that if they were to proceed with, we would eventually see?
Would be what?
Would we eventually see it or no?
Oh, yeah, yes, it has to come, we actually have been discussing it, it's the first time it's ever come up under a special
Yeah.
use permit, because typically it's for restaurants.
Right.
You know what I mean, tavern and restaurant, so this is,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, we've never done one.
right, we've never done
Never
it.
done
So
one.
it's a unique animal.
So it had to come in front of us. We have to hear it and grant it.
Yeah, yeah, well, as we were talking before, some of the qualifications under such print will not fit.
Okay. So that's one.
MUEC as well.
Okay.
So it is an MUEC?
Okay, great. The other thing, if you could, just for purposes of thinking about special permits and thinking about restaurants and bars, I'd love to see some of the old permits if we could. So this is my first special permit for a restaurant, I think, on the board.
Are you talking about for State Street? Or are you talking about?
Which one are we talking
No, I'm
about?
just saying, in general,
Oh,
on the agenda today is
Yeah.
my first special permit for a restaurant.
the one that's
Yeah,
on
And I
today.
know you're only here for a little bit,
Yeah.
so I was just going to ask if you could.
Yeah, no, I'll do some
All of your
research, yeah,
permits.
yeah.
And then the only other quick questions, you mentioned the repair to the side door to the village hall. Have you given any consideration, either Jack or Steve, to the repair of the column that's out there that's kind of?
Yes, we have discussed it, and it will be being looked at and figure out how to proceed. We have estimates for repair, but I gotta do a little investigation.
Okay, great. And then,
Can we secure it now, just where the,
Yes, yeah.
okay.
and then we're obviously talking about the rental registry tonight. Before you head out, is there any comments that you might have to share with us?
My personal feeling, I've been asking or wanting a rental registry since I started here. I believe that a rental registry with restrictions or with the ability to rescind a permit serves a purpose of a short-term rental, because no matter what, if there's an issue, a permit can be revoked, and it would have to be fixed and inspected again and then reissued in order for that facility to operate again.
Be it short-term or long-term, that applies.
Right, it'd all be the same.
Because,
In that, I do want to say one thing real quick in regard to, Mark made mention, just so it's clear, there was no complaint about the car and Mark. I saw a car when I was doing a patrol one day, and I contacted Mark to let him know that it needed to be moved. So there was no complaint by anybody in regard to that.
okay.
One other question, I know this jumps forward a little bit, but it's important with regards to the rental registry review of the law. in how I interpreted it, when it takes effect, it'd be a fairly short time period by which a permit may need to be received in order for it to continue to operate. Would you envision more of a staging in over time so that you're not doing all the rentals in 1 month, but you're spreading them out
Yes, oh,
over
yeah.
different times?
Yes, same thing I do with fire inspection.
So-
I do staggered. I
Staggered,
could not
that's right.
process them all in one shot.
So based on the number of rentals in the village, you would hope to have at least 6 months or 12 months to roll this forward?
Yep.
Just, okay, operational.
So
Thank you.
it's my understanding that you'd be leaving because the rental registry is item 6, and I think that, I think you should probably be here, or maybe we could
I
move it up.
cannot be here, I have a previous.
Okay, so should we maybe move it up so that he's available? I mean,
I have
He has to
to leave.
leave
He
like
has like T-minus
Okay.
1
2
minute.
minutes.
It's okay.
Oh, well, because there are questions that I'm going to have
It was
about
something that
that.
came up for him.
Okay. I think those are the important things that I had. Thank you.
Do you want me to ask it now then, while you're
Sure,
here?
real quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, I saw that you were thinking about having the registration evaluated and redone every year.
Yes.
Okay, that seems very labor intensive. Are you able to take that responsibility on for you to get to every rental place every
Once
single
we
year?
Once we establish what they are, yes, it's going to be a quick,
Okay.
it's not like it's going to take a ton of time. Once the initial will take some time.
Okay,
Setting it up.
Once
Setting it up
Once
will
the
take-
system's set up on a computer and things like that, it will not be that labor intensive.
but you have to be on site and do an evaluation on site every year?
Yes,
And that's what he does for all of the commercial
I mean, really 700,
businesses.
708, I think, house in the village. I would guess we only have 20 at the most, 30 rentals in the village. So it's not, I don't think we're looking at a huge number.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
We're good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Thanks.
Okay. Next up, the DPW report. Zach sent that out to everybody.
Yeah, it's always.
Does everybody have it or need a copy?
Got it. If you could
I
pass
looked
that
at it.
down.
Oh, here.
I just didn't.
Oh.
What's this?
Yeah, I didn't. Did you want a hard copy? Yeah, do you have another hard copy? Yeah.
I need to have copies for everybody.
Michael sent it
Yeah,
down.
Lisa wants one.
Send it down. I looked at it, but
Yeah, it's easier when it's in
Anybody
front of
else? Going?
you. Okay, I did read it. One more. Lily.
No problem.
Thank you.
great job on the trees, staff.
Sorry?
Great job on the trees. Thank you. I think everybody's happy about that.
Do we have it in the budget, the tree replacement?
Yes, we have enough for about 10.
Okay. We're on the case. Super. Yeah, it's so interesting because hasn't been that much snow.
Yeah.
New York City got it evidently, but we didn't.
Getting some right now, but it's just been.
Just don't look out the window, please.
Yeah, oh, it's snowing, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
But it's helped, you could now get to a few other things.
Yeah, I think our spring cleanup is going to be fairly simple this year.
Yeah.
We've actually we had the sweep route last week when it was 55 degrees.
Yeah,
Roads are looking pretty good at the moment. Not a whole lot of pothole repair. We have gone through quite a lot of patch, but not what's typical at this point, and the same with the salt usage. We're about 50% of the salt that we use on a yearly basis, and of course, way through the winter. So I think we're in good shape with that.
yeah. Any other questions for Zach?
I just had one, the existing trash receptacles, some of them are starting to show a little paint wear. Is that something that's on the
Can I
calendar?
hear?
I know, I'm
Just beautification.
Stuff on those.
Yeah,
yeah,
we're in the process.
okay.
Ordering and
Yeah, I
presenting.
think,
We're on it.
yeah, we're trying to squeeze something in on the budget for replacing some.
Okay. Is there any, have you guys seen any recyclable receptacles that may be reflective of character of our historical village that could work? Because I really hate throwing plastic out in our trash.
I know, I carry mine home.
So having alongside the garbage recyclable as well?
Possibly, or even if it's staggered or in one or two locations, one down by Shane Place. That way people who do have a vested interest can try to act on it and maybe walk a little bit farther to get it done.
And some of our businesses offer the recycling, inside
Yeah,
as
inside.
well, so, but
Yeah.
we could look into that. Why don't we look
Yeah,
into that?
we have the means to be able to, we have a 5-yard recycling dumpster at our shop, so
Oh,
we have
we
the
could-
means to be able to take it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can make it
so
part of
we
your
just-
We
pickup.
just need to offer that service, for people to be able to use.
Good thought, yeah. Anybody else, any other? Oh, a big shout out to you and also to Danielle Reeler, I always mispronounce her last name, for really doing the work on setting up all the templates for the capital planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
been fun.
looking good.
Honestly, it's long since the year.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
good,
we need
it's
that.
good, so, but it's been all hands on deck there, I know, so thanks for that.
So I guess just following up on that item too, I do very much appreciate it as well, Zach. When is it reasonable to have that in front of us to review? Can we have a copy of that in a week, for example, so that a couple of us could come in here and take a look at the capital plan?
We plan to have it for you on the 20th, as
For the
we
next meeting.
discussed last week. We're,
On the 20th.
Oh,
next budget meeting,
The next budget workshop,
yep, we had talked about it, and we were trying to get everything finalized. for
yeah,
the
that
20th.
was,
Okay, so
The
that's
action.
going to come
It'll
through
be in the
for the.
packet, not.
It'll be in the packet for
Great.
the meeting on the 20th, and I'll send the spreadsheets
Okay.
along.
Great, thank you.
and that was on the record as the action item from our last budget meeting, so you guys are on schedule.
Is that the
We
only thing left
appreciate
that we
it.
need for the long-term capital plan from the village staff? Is Zach's DPW,
That's the direction.
is that the only thing we're looking for?
We're open, let's see what we can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to review
We
it.
gotta have to take a look at it first,
And
and
then
then
we
they
have
have to
prioritization
pick
and
it
other
apart.
various
Okay.
timelines, but like, once you have everything lined up, it's prioritization and timelines, and then fill in the gaps, is there anything we're missing?
There you go.
Sounds good.
Okay?
All right. Thanks, Zach. Okay, next up, the treasurer's report, please.
Okay, we have your bill pay in front of you. Is there any questions on the bill pay?
I did have one, because I think well, maybe a couple. First one is, how often do we go through audits? It came to mind when
What type
I,
of audit are you talking about?
internal or with our
We don't,
CPAs or
our
external?
CPA comes in, he reviews all the work done in a year,
Mhm.
and then he helps prepare the
Annual.
financial.
So once a year, he kind of
The
comes in
ending
and
stuff. He takes a look at all our journal entries and
Yep,
everything,
hammers
make sure
through it all.
everything's been fine.
When does that typically happen?
Well, we need to close the books in May, so usually, I'd like it sooner than later,
Yeah.
but it's usually June, July.
And then it goes into the AUD,
Yeah, it goes in our annual update document that we
Okay.
have.
and then that's filed with Albany.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's required by
It's part of
state
our
law. right?
compliance.
It's the,
Yep.
otherwise the trustees won't do that.
Couple of just quick things. Petty cash. What do we use petty cash for?
Petty cash, so we can make change for people paying bills.
Oh, I
And,
thought it
People
was
still
the,
pay- some people, I was hoping people still pay with cash.
oh, yeah.
oh, yeah.
Okay, so question on that, is there any consideration for automating some of the bill payment, offering online bill payment?
We already do.
Or maybe even, can you offer discounts for online bill payments?
No, we cannot.
You cannot, so there's no real way to encourage.
Nope, we keep reminding them, now do it again while we have a meeting. You can pay your sewer bill online, please. And I can tell you this time sending it out.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of hits.
Yeah.
I can tell the minute everybody
Picking
started opening up, because over the week, that weekend, my phone went bing, 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 bing. So people are using it. I think we are getting more than we used to.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to let everybody know, nothing was automated until last year.
Yeah, we added this,
It'd never been
it's our
automated
second
before
second
in
or
the
third
village.
bill pay with it.
So people, it's just getting people
Yeah,
to
It's
recognize.
a new habit.
It's changing a behavior, I think,
thank you, no, there is.
And
then the luncheon, I saw the luncheon cost, certainly respect having luncheons with staff and others. Do we do that often?
We have a monthly luncheon usually that's sponsored, taken care of by staff.
By staff? Or for staff by village?
No, but you sometimes, depends on the luncheon. If it's a meeting update with employee things, that's different.
Mhm.
If it's just a luncheon, that's another factor.
Okay. Going on to the integrated system service agreement, $4,750, that's for the 2024 plus a little 25, that's next year, paid on this year.
Yep, that's the 50 hours before it approved, the last meeting. That
Yep.
hopefully will take us for the year unless we have an incredible issue. Typically, we try to make that last as long as possible.
Okay, great. This has to do with the 483 and 484. This was the Power and Construction Group repair Main Street outage and the gas electric street lighting, 3,600 and 4,000. Is that what you were discussing last time?
Yes.
How often do we see something like this, and is it preventable?
It is preventable, but it's costly to prevent it. Right now, we're on a reactive basis with streetlight outages. So what happened is there was a fault somewhere underground, and this is all wiring that was done back in the 80s, I think. So to trace it, because there are so many different loops and circuits going through the system, you need multiple people at multiple locations to be able to trace. And they haven't diagnosed it. So we had 8 lights out, I think. So we had to figure out why and where.
So along these lines, did you, as part of the long-term capital plan, happen to throw in, this is what it would cost so that we don't have this issue that's embedded in? Okay, great, thank you.
Just for those of you, you may have seen the contractors crawling around the Four Corners looking at all the street lights for the last couple of weeks. And what starts out, we have beautiful historic streetlights, but they're old, and the infrastructure underground is old as well. So that's what we're referring to here. Sometimes it's never as simple as, oh gee, a light is out. It's not about changing the light bulb. There's, a lot of moving parts. So it was an underground issue that affects more than one light.
We start with the simple and start going from there. And this one just happened to turn into the most complicated situation.
Right. So first you change the light bulb, and then you go from there.
Yeah.
So then we've identified it all and we fixed it under that cost as well?
It's a temporary fix. So all the lights can be lit right now, but the circuit might, need to be unloaded a little bit because everything's kind of on this over right now.
And those costs were related to 8 outages.
I think it was 8, yeah.
8. Generally speaking, you let it go for a while until you bring them in and then do a bunch at once, or do you?
No. 8 were out due to one fault. Yeah. But it was trying to find that fault. That's the problem. That was the hard part, because you have wires that are running underneath the concrete sidewalk, you have wires that are running underneath the road from one corner to the other 4 corners. Trying to trace them in multiple handfuls as well is difficult. So,
is this a little like light bulbs, the old light bulbs in your house where you put 6 new ones in, when one blows, the next 5 are going to go in the next year? Are we going to have the same thing happen?
This is the 3rd time this has happened. It happened before in 7 years.
Okay.
In which, having to bring in a contractor because it's outside of what we're being able to do. And them spending, it's all time and materials for them to spend with multiple people to do this work, because it's time consuming and it's also rate pay, and that's why you see being so expensive. But yes, it will continue to happen until we run new wiring, revamp the system somehow.
Okay. And that'll
It's a
be
big project that requires either tearing a sidewalk, directionally boring, digging up the road, this process.
Right. But that's all going to be in the long-term plan in terms of where you might like to see things going eventually. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, is there a motion?
A motion to approve the financials as presented, or the bill pays.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next.
Okay, I need to request from the board, I have another employee who has met their deductible on the remaining portion of their HSA. It's a single plan, so I would like permission to do that.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes. Saturday, we conducted the coffee and conversation. Mayor Plummer was here to assist me with that event. We had about 20 residents, I think.
20, more than that, probably
Yep.
about 25, coming and going.
Yeah, coming in and going. It was a successful event. We got the sense that the public would like to see more of it. It's really if you want to add anything,
No, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And, we'll try to keep doing things.
Yep.
For
So the
everybody.
topics discussed were refuse.
refuse district, short-term rentals came up, the Southwood construction possibly,
Oh, traffic issues, speeding.
traffic, speeding,
Is there something about Shane Place?
a little bit about Shane. I think his
Historic
concern
barns.
about the barns, yeah.
Yeah, it was wide ranging. I mean, it was just.
Yeah, it was a
wanted to
wide
come in.
variety of subjects, and kind of naturally bounced around.
And then I think it'd be great, we have, many of you know Audrey Johnson, who was our town and village historian for many, many years. She's retired. And Vicki Prophet, who was the deputy historian, has now stepped up and is the town and village historian. So maybe that could be the next sort of coffee and conversation, introduce the historian to the village and talk about the nature of all of our wonderful historic properties and talk about your homes if you have questions and all of that.
Maybe
So,
preservation questions as
yeah,
well.
just all of that. I think that'd be kind of a good thing.
So just as a point of clarification, and this came from some feedback from residents after. So first off, appreciate that we do these things. It is good for the village to reach out to the public and have an open forum for people to come in. And it's nice, as the clerk, you can kind of come forward and do this as needed to try to inform residents. Just from a point of, not a order necessarily, but some of the feedback that I've heard is, hey, the mayor was there, nobody else was. And I just think it's important to know that the date and the determination of the coffee and conversation can be made or was made without any input from the Board of Trustees, nor the necessity for them to be present for that, nor the request. So I found out about it in my bill. I knew that you could have these. I knew we were going to talk about having a refuse district conversation. I had no
Dorothea
idea.
was directed to set it up.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I
and we
understand
talked
that.
about Saturdays. I don't know. Okay.
The comment being that
Okay,
until it came in the mail, I wasn't aware when it was going to be, and I wasn't able to attend. And I think every trustee here was made aware of the date and the time in the mail in the same fashion. I'm not necessarily saying that it's a problem as much as it is, I think moving forward, there's an expectation from residents that other trustees may participate,
of course, at any point,
right?
absolutely.
So I'm going to ask for future coffee and conversations that the date and topics noted be approved by the board in advance. And I'll make a motion to that.
Okay, I will second that, and then I have a comment once it's been seconded, so.
Okay, so you seconded and comment? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I also was very pleased that people came, and I was so happy to see a room full of residents. I mean, it's like my dream to have people here and interact with us as we sit here, because it's very difficult to work in a vacuum. So I always like to hear from people, and I appreciate that very much. So going forward, I was going to suggest to my fellow board members that maybe not on a regular basis, but a semi-regular basis, that we do have coffee and conversations. People seem to like that format rather than coming out to a formalized meeting for conversation. I would really appreciate it, and I would love personally to initiate another coffee and conversation, either with all board members or even just one other board member, because we can't have more than 2 trustees or 2 board members.
We can publicly notice it.
And we could do
As
that.
a meeting, but it's coffee and conversation. As long as we publicly notice it, we can have the entire board here.
Yeah.
We could even bring in members of other boards for that matter,
So-
depending on the topic.
Yeah.
So,
I would very much.
and typically they were always held on Saturdays, on weekends, because it was easier for residents working during the week. They have family, all of that,
Absolutely.
to
So
come
I'm
in and
hoping
just
we
grab
can
a
come
cup
up
of
with a date and
coffee.
time, and also sponsor a coffee and conversation or dessert and something.
I think it's great. I just would like to be informed as to the time and the topics. And-
Yes.
And I frankly don't mind that we notify them through a particular mailing that was already going out. And so I
think
look
if you go
forward to
back-
future participation.
I think if you go back and look at the tape, the dates came up in the discussion about having it, not that coming Saturday, but this one that just happened, I think if you go back and look, it was part of a discussion with the board. But I hear where you're going, and I think that's a good thing to, make sure we can get everybody who can attend, to be able to, so that's good.
Are we going to vote on that matter?
I'd like to.
Oh, yeah, do we have a motion and a second?
Could we
Yep.
just restate the motion?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Simply that future coffee and conversations, the date is agreed upon by the board, and that the topics of conversation that are indicated are agreed to as well.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Two real quick updates and then I'll be done. The village received a dividend from our workman's comp carrier. They've been very good at doing that. It was a dividend of 37.5% of our policy cost, which was a check of $12,020.60 that's been received in the bank. So that was good news. And the other piece of information I told the board I was anticipating receiving for Valentine's Day, and I did. We received notification of our sales tax for our fourth quarter. We have one more quarter for this budget year, and it was a total of $167,597.46. Wow, no, percent. That leaves us $148,227.07 to collect for what we budgeted to receive in revenue this year. So
That's the estimate, and we're tracking.
we're at 78% of what we estimated. I do believe we'll make it, because that last check has been ranging in that amount. So I'm comfortable saying we're going to make our revenue off of that, maybe a tad bit more, but I'm not going to push that.
Off the top of your head, fourth quarter or the Christmas quarter to the next, what is generally the decline?
It's slight.
Is it slight?
It's slight.
It's not as big as you would think, I
Yeah, right.
know.
No, it's
Yeah.
not this
Great.
huge, it
Surprising.
hasn't been this huge drop. Matter of fact, if I remember last year, they were pretty close.
They were
Okay.
close.
They were pretty close. So like I said, I feel comfortable. I make no promises because I can't
Yeah.
control consumer spending, but I believe we're going to make our revenue as anticipated.
So, and just for anybody here and listening, we really track the sales tax because it's a source of revenue, obviously, for our village, but we don't really see it kind of real time. We have to wait because the county collects the tax, and then we get our portion of it. That's why we're excited to hear the numbers for the last quarter.
On that point, if I may, am I correct that sales tax is appropriated based on population?
There's a formula.
There's a
formula at the
Yeah.
county level. We have asked many times. We have never really gotten the formula. It's kind of complicated, and I'm not saying it's of everybody, but every time we've reached out to get it, we really never understood the formula.
Population is a part of it.
I believe it
Yeah,
is.
population is,
Big
we
part.
know population's a part of it.
Big
Yeah,
part of it.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
I mean, you get a healthy share, and hopefully that'll stay the way it is.
Yeah. Okay.
That formula is probably public record. We just never
I
get it.
imagine it is. I know the former
Go for it.
treasurer and other trustees have reached out to the county trying to get that information, and I'm not sure they were successful.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, what else?
That's all I have.
Wow. All right, first up, the review of the special permit regarding 5 State Street. Hello.
Hello again.
Yep, here, you guys can pull up chairs. Sure.
So I'm here, this is my brother Pete, co-owner of the building, and Randy Peacock, our architect. Randy is double booked up in Webster for another public meeting tonight, so we probably have him for like 20 minutes or so. So if we need him, hopefully we can expedite. And thanks to Dorothea for moving us up on the agenda to accommodate. So provided a more fulsome permit with more meat on the bone, taking into account the feedback from the last meeting, so thank you. And ongoing discussions between Jeff and our council. I don't know if I need to rehash anything we've talked about, but I'd be happy to just jump right into questions or comments or concerns about the application.
Anyone want to dive in? Any questions?
I will dive in. What can you provide us regarding your refuse plan?
Sure. So our position is that we've had a 34-year history of using the easement
that's been in place for our refuse, which gives us access to the Village Bakery dumpster area. And we've talked about it at length here. That's an easement that's in place, and that's what's been considered the written agreement in all past applications for Empire Paint, for Starbucks, and for Rachel's. So based on that precedent, we believe that's, should be sufficient for our refuse.
So you could provide us in writing an affidavit or similar stating that you have the use of the dumpster for this purpose, for this.
So when the property was, because it used to be one property, us and the Village Bakery, when it was split in 1990, there was a deed between the owners at that time, which were our family, and the two owners prior to the current Village Bakery owners. That document, which is on file with the county, which is a deed, is a written agreement that they allow three main things. They allow us to access the garbage area. The water line comes in through our side of the building and then goes over to the Village Bakery. And so we sub-meter them for their portion of water. Again, that's an easement, so we're required to do that. And 3, there's a shared handicap parking space, which is the 16 by 20 space on the east side of our building over there that was actually designated, and these things were actually designated, as we understand it, by the village when the properties were split to ensure conformance with the permits that were at that time. So that easement has been in place for 34 years, and again, it's what was used for the prior special permits for all operations in our property and accepted by the village in the past.
So Jeff, do easements follow the property?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so.
The only difference we have in this case compared to the previous permits is there's been both public and written renunciation by the rear owner of that easement, saying it doesn't exist anymore. So relying on it, and this isn't a blind side because I said the same thing.
I should have come from there.
Yeah, I said the same thing to your attorney. It's a little problematic for me.
So what kind of documentation can we get that secure that easement? What would we need to
I'd
secure
like
that?
something from the current owner that provided the handicap spot is provided, that the refuse access will be provided.
So additional documentation and an affidavit.
Yeah, and your attorney mentioned how to have a plan.
Yeah,
Or another plan.
Yes, and I'm ready with that. So let me walk through our rationale.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Because I know, you've been working on the building a little bit inside and stuff. Are you using that dumpster now?
It was used by Rachel's right until the day they stopped.
But are you folks using that dumpster now?
We don't have a reason to.
Okay, I'm just, if you've done it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all.
We actually have gone in and done some cleanup ourselves. We just took it ourselves.
You did, okay, so you didn't put it in the dumpster?
No, but I mean,
Okay.
it was like construction waste and things like that I think had to be taken away. So the problem with us getting a separate written agreement is that ties our permit to a neighbor which is on public record for not wanting us to be able to operate. And so to have our special permit tied to a written permission means that they have leverage over us to cut that off and make us out of violation with our permit. Even though in our mind, we have the easement that supersedes any written agreement, is, legally ironclad. The argument in the litigation was that, and remember, LaFabrica wanted to come in and wanted to convert our entire parking lot into an outdoor courtyard. And the variance around that was approved. The challenge was that Village Baker was saying, well, you're taking away my shared handicap parking space, so I'm going to take away your garbage. My plan and permit actually doesn't change the parking layout at all. It doesn't call for a patio. So their problem with us not being able to provide handicap parking is really moot, which, kind of goes against their challenge on the variance.
Let's stay focused, if we can, on the refuse plan and where that's, yeah,
Sorry.
Jeff, go ahead, you're on a roll.
So
not really, but, so I guess maybe I phrased it wrong. A reaffirmance by that owner that the easement exists.
So-
Given the fact that they have publicly said it doesn't.
Now, if they,
I'm not talking about any new agreement, I'm just saying,
a recognition,
yes, the easement was granted by such and such deed, and the easement is still in full force and effect.
Right, it's just-
I mean, that would be, it's not requiring it's not requiring a new agreement, it is requiring a reversal of his affirmation and affidavits filed in the pending litigation.
which
So,
we're waiting any day for something.
Yeah.
There, so.
yeah, I understand that, but
If I could compel them to, we'll give it the college try, but what I would want to ensure is that if we did get that, if they would be able to take that back when our permit was valid, like if it's a one-time thing and then we get the permit and nothing they say or do can take that back unless the easement were overturned in court, then fine. I don't want to be in a position where they could all of a sudden say, oh, well, we don't give consent anymore, even though they don't have a right, it's an easement, which they can't just.
yeah, and we can't,
flip away.
I mean, we really can't speak to the future too much, but I think given the present renunciation of the existence of your right to use that easement, a present declaration that the easement still exists would certainly be further ahead than we're right now, for the board's purposes.
Let's call that option A. Option B, the alternative, of which there's two, so we'll call them B1 and B2. One of which would be to go to other adjoining properties or neighbors in the village to get a refuse consent. Similar problem is that, if they don't like us anymore, they can refute it, we have a permit problem. But also, we tried that, and we tried that back in April with the Fabrica, and we're quite unsuccessful. So that's plan B1. Plan B2 would be to have something on site, which we've actually written and have some preliminary concept around, if I can hand it out. I can hand it out directly.
One for the record.
I think we can add it to the record. So this is.
We'll just get one after you're done explaining.
Yeah, sure. I think I have enough.
You do it, mine.
Okay, go ahead.
You'll get it.
I have one more.
Do you have more?
They'll
So-
share with me at some point.
So what we would propose is that our permit be, we intend to use the easement as we have for 34 years. And if that easement is overturned or blocked or denied in some way, shape, or form, the 16 by 20 space on the side of the building would be converted into a refuse tote area. Now, for one, this is really the only space on the property we could potentially do this and preserve our parking and not have it be in the front of the street. Two, just given the nature of the operation, we thought about having some totes along the building or on the door. It doesn't, just for what we would need, having an enclosed area around that 16 by 20 space, which is our property, and you can see in our permit, we have the site survey. Basically, an enclosed area that would be covered on all sides and on top for a refuse alternative.
Now, isn't that where the handicap parking space is?
Well, if they're saying that we don't have an easement anymore, then we don't have an obligation to provide handicap parking, a shared handicap parking space to them.
Makes sense to me, sorry.
So we would, this first space right here, we would call that our ADA compliant, the first space all the way on the right, we would call that our ADA compliant handicap parking space to be in compliance with ADA. But so again, just to reiterate, we wouldn't necessarily want to build this from the get-go, but if we were denied access, this is an alternative that within some time frame we could easily erect and put up. We could initially do it on a temporary basis so we could preserve our operations and then move to a more permanent solution. This hasn't gotten direct feedback from Steve yet, other than sort of the verbal overlay that it needs to be a covered space.
which would have to go through preservation.
Did he say, I'm sorry, you said you
It would have to go through preservation.
So, yeah.
Can I just interject? Sure. I never got the covered space that I was assuming we were using toters. And so that didn't have a roof over.
A screen.
A screen, sorry, that's what you mean.
Yeah, I wanted
It's screened on four
screen.
sides and
Yeah.
it's 6 feet tall, but there's no roof over it. That's just
Mhm.
regular.
Yeah, I think it's just screened, yeah.
Did Steve mention site plan?
So that would be a question of what we need to do, but I believe that would require site plan.
And so then it would require, the next step to get site plan would be to go for an information only to the HPV. So you know you're not presenting something to this board that would not be, is probably approvable, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So that would be the next phase, and then you'd come to this board for the permit, which then could be granted conditionally, that if you weren't able to access the back dumpster, you could use this as your dumpster area. I'm not trying to speak for the board, but just so we don't lose sight of it, I think another condition would be that the variances that were granted originally are not overturned by a court. Okay, so that, we talked about that before.
Yep.
That's probably going to be the court, our board's going to want that.
By the time we're all through all this, maybe we'll have a decision, so we'll see, but that's not where we're
So-
Your mouth to God's ears.
Okay.
So what's your preference out of all those plans, A, B, and C?
1, B1, and B2?
Yes,
That's the
1,
three-
B.
Yeah.
Because you're coming to us
If you-
tonight
if-
with
if-
one.
Yeah, so if I have to do one, I mean, this is really it.
Can I
because-
interject something here? I don't think he has to do one.
Tonight?
Hang on,
He's not ready tonight anyway.
yeah.
Okay, because I believe what you're talking about is getting a special permit with a condition that if access to the back dumpster is denied, you will then build this space, which will have been pre-approved by the planning board.
Correct.
And approved by the HPV after this permit is issued as an alternative to that dumpster.
So my preference is.
Well, you don't have to have a preference.
Well, that's okay, I'm okay to answer.
I got it right.
Yeah, you're right.
It's
What if-
steps.
Let's put it this way, I would like to preserve optionality. This is a good option. If I were to be able to have another neighboring property provide consent, and we're gonna make an attempt there, that would, if that were an acceptable alternative. So I'd like to know which alternatives you would find acceptable, so that I don't go all the way down the path on one.
Let me throw something out here. I think it's action items. First action item would be that you would, that we're requesting you would receive a reaffirmation of the fact that that easement is in place with your neighbor next door to use the dumpster. First step. If that happens, then you bring that back to we go through the process, am I correct? If that doesn't happen, your second step would be your B2 plan, okay? Which would then, you would go before the PZBA, the informational, you would go through these other boards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm seeing, that's my takeaway.
Right. And the permit, though, could be granted alternatively. So the eventual permit could say, if you were unable to access the current easement dumpster, then you will build what has been approved by the planning board for a dumpster enclosure on your property.
If it's approved. If the planning board, right, if they approve it. So just a little insight. I remember distinctly when the Cycle Cafe was here, and they wanted to put a whitewash station there, and that's exact space. And the little bakery was very upset about that, primarily because it was going to block their outside view, right? So just a suggestion is to make sure that they know that this is going to possibly come up if they don't agree to allow you to use. I'm just saying, just for negotiation techniques. that if they know that this is down the line and that you're able to do that, that might change the way they look at things.
They can solve that problem themselves.
Yeah, but I mean, just let them know.
Totally agree. One big difference with here than La Fabrica is that was not only taking away that space, but the entire Colliston courtyard was going to surface our entire parking area.
Yeah.
So if the concern is about, parking, that's not going to be a problem. But yes, obstructing a view.
It was the
And it's
obstruction of
also-
view.
And, full disclosure, that sidewalk is on our property. It was never consented to be built on our property. It would cover that sidewalk. I have to operate, I have to do what we have to do to get a tenant in this building and do what we can. So I'm glad to hear, it sounds like if that can be, I don't want to have to build that, but if I have to, we will. And if the board is okay with that, then I'll go through the work to do that, in addition to the college try on plan one and, or A and
was A.
B1. Trying to keep it straight.
But if you get one, then you cut out all the contacting any of their board sends.
Now, if I could get one, could I get confirmation that that's a one-time and able to get our permit approved, and nothing they can say or do beyond that, beyond the easement getting tossed, could put our permit in jeopardy? Because the problem I have is, are we going to be, it's not very fair to us to have our permit tied up to someone else's consent, which we don't think they technically have a consent right because we have an easement.
I understand. I would think that if you can gain an affirmation that that easement still exists after this lawsuit has been commenced, then that would be the condition of your special permit. So it would not be that you can get an affirmation whenever the board wants it. It's just that you can get an affirmation at the time they're granting the permit.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, that's what would-
I can't speak for the board.
But that's what would move it forward.
Right.
Okay.
That's really helpful.
Okay.
So then tonight, there's really, are we able to move forward in any way, or we have to wait for this?
I mean, I would want to make sure that the planning board's on board with this enclosure idea first before, and then if you catch your meetings right, I don't know, have you sketched anything up or anything?
No, this is,
I mean.
Well, there's elevations of it on the bottom. I mean, I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
I think what
It's a brick wall.
What the HPV is going to need is a concept view. And so what I'm trying to say to you is you could get certainly the HPV on information only as quickly as you can get the concept view done. We've got a meeting coming up on the 26th, I think.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah.
And how.
Would it be them in planning, right?
Yeah, planning goes first.
Yeah.
But you would still have to go to HB just to get their view on things.
And information only.
Yeah, information only. So.
I'm out there.
Okay.
So
We'll just have to coordinate dates.
right. I mean,
I moonlight as a lawyer, I can moonlight as an architect. I moonlight as a lawyer and moonlight as an architect, so I'll try my best.
Another side hustle.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, it can be,
I my day job.
it could be drafted by your architect.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be here for the presentation.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know if there are other issues.
I guess I would like to confirm that my permit application is at least complete in your eyes, and are there any other concerns that you have about it as I endeavor on this path? Anything that we need to incorporate feedback-wise?
So I would say that it's complete, I'm speaking now from the administration part of this, it's not for the board of trustees. Administratively, I believe your application is complete because we have a plan. Now, I would say the refuse plan is not going to fulfill what this board wants to see to grant the permit. So from that sense, we've got further work to do before they're going to be ready to consider a grant permit. We just talked about all that. Whether the board has other concerns that we haven't discussed, that, that's up to them. I've already mentioned my two. The litigation contingency, or, yeah, right, the overturning contingency and having something built in for refuse.
Is there any other input from the board? I'm in agreement with our attorney. I think that's, it's a path forward anyway, to kind of get you down the road. So.
I just have a few things.
Sure.
So the description of the activity that's planned for the location, restaurant, very open-ended. Maybe some more specificity there would be helpful. That also pertains to the hours of operations. So as of now, it's 10 to 12, and then 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., but that 2 a.m. is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I guess my first question is, where did you sort of draw those times from? What was the idea around them? Why include Sunday on the 2 a.m.? And I know per conversations with our attorney that as a restaurant, to my understanding, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, that essentially the standard of all restaurants is the standard for this restaurant. So what everybody else does is what you can do, and there's some degree of consistency or precedent that we can't grant you something that wasn't granted before, nor could we restrict you where we granted it before. So there's, I don't know if it's expressly stated, and that's one of the reasons why I'd asked Steve earlier if he could draw upon some of those prior permits so that we can be consistent with regards to our hours of operations.
Yeah. Helpful. Yeah, I think the objective for us is that, we will be, have an approval, but then it might be shorter than that depending on what makes sense economically. And I think, so we're aiming to have hours of operation that we think are contingent with other similar businesses in the village, but just in general, the operation we're looking to run. And so I think we're trying not to pigeonhole ourselves in anything, if you understand.
You want to be as flexible as possible
Yes.
to see what comes
works
out,
for the
right,
business
and what works for the
model.
business. I agree with that. I just don't want to, until I hear from Steve, be approving something where there's embedded hours of operation where maybe they didn't exist before. And in particular, I sort of think Sunday evening, but we'll see where that goes. Was there a reason why you would include in Sunday?
No, not particularly. That would not be, that's a work day. So I don't think so. I think, flexibility for like special events with some contingency, like if there were like watching the Super Bowl or something like that, or certain events that there's some flexibility maybe.
Late night West Coast.
Yeah, but not like, I wouldn't imagine that to be, a regular thing.
Right.
The other thing too, on your comment on specificity, we're preparing ourselves to make a large investment with advisors, capital partners and the like to move this forward. We have a concept here that we think, one, fits the village very well, two, is going to be in high demand, and three, is suited for our footprint because we can't do everything. So when you do say specificity, like what, I know in particular are you looking for? Because I am also, your point on precedent of permits, I did look at what other restaurants in the village have presented, and there's very simple concept, and sometimes they follow that, and sometimes they have some degrees of freedom. There's others that are very, very thorough, and I think La Fabrica was the most thorough, beautiful, glossy presentation you've probably seen out of a permit. And we're just not there yet because we still have more investment to make, but getting the permit is a big first step to do all of that.
So I think for me to come on board, understanding what the type of restaurant and use within the restaurant, because the idea of restaurant versus, I know you had originally come in wanting to have be a tavern. And so obviously there is sort of the risk of the bleed, into one versus the other. I know the liquor license or liquor authority primarily, determines that, and our code determines that, what's approved, not. But to understand how it fits within the village, it's not going to be OTV, right?
Yeah, it can't be,
right? But possibly, it's the question of, what exactly is it going in would be helpful to understand as it pertains to the hours of operation
Okay.
for me. The only other question I had is the refuse. I know we just talked a lot about it, but what is exactly the plan if you have totes? Like, what are the hours of pickup anticipated? What are the, what is in fact going into totes? For example, are you intending it to be lots of bottles and cans? It's very loud. What are the hours? When does that happen? Right? There's a lot of them. So a little more information rather than just saying, yep, we're going to build this, but what is the plan around?
For the alternative?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we thought was, we know the vendors that currently service that dumpster. So we would use the same vendor so that the pickup was essentially the same and have it be easy access. They can both do totes and the dumpster that's there. There's also totes there as well that have been used historically. So really what we would do is we would basically mimic whatever that uses. We also have a relationship with our neighbor on the other side.
So those are different hours of operation. So maybe just sharing with us what you anticipate the hours of operation and frequency of pickup would be, and what the, not contaminants, what the trash would actually be. Is it 6 dumpster totes of bottles? Is it 6 dumpsters of cans? And what is it?
Based on our occupancy and what we would need, about 6 totes. It would be probably on a regular basis 3 times a week. Would adjust, but we're not intending to serve bottles, and if so, most of it's going to be tap glassware. It's not going to be disposable utensils and things like that.
It's a finer dining.
It's a finer dining. This is really a restaurant, so I know
that's the part of the restaurant description that is helpful for me to understand how it pertains to the trash management.
Yeah, I think it says a high-end
Pub-style restaurant.
grill or something.
But some of those things like
Yeah, maybe expand on that so it's clear for.
I think I also want to make sure that it's clear that the application that you're presenting to us is only for the inside restaurant. There's no outside. Now, I know we had talked about the fact that if the restaurant does really well and you want to move forward on doing the outside space, Jeff, this is something, would that have to come to us separately? And you understand that?
an amendment to the permit. Yeah,
Exactly.
That's fully the plan from a testing standpoint and also timing standpoint.
Okay, just so you know.
Down the patio route before, we want to just maybe step our way to this.
Yeah. Okay,
Phase 1.
great. That's all I have.
Phase 1A.
1A, we have the A, B, okay.
Exactly. But okay, so I can elaborate on kind of a little bit more of the concept and what we're aiming for. We do have all of that in our mind. We'll elaborate some concept. Hours of operation we can talk through as well. Anything else that jumps out that we can address now or prepare additional detail on?
This has to do with H, and it might be Steve's purview, but this was adequately served by existing water, sanitary sewers, other public facilities and services such as roadway capacity, police and fire protection, drainage structures, refuse, right? And I just would like to get some comments there on the occupancy at 59 is substantially different than Rachel's or Starbucks perceived occupancy over a period, right? And I would just like to have some comment of our fire safety marshal and just from a safety perspective, what do we anticipate as far as traffic in the evening or late? Is it crossing the street or not? Obviously, we've got the crosswalk down the way and then up Main Street. The parking at this point, that would matter based on the special permit, so that goes back to Jeff's comments and the variance. But just that H comment, it'd be nice to hear our
Steve would be able to weigh in.
Yeah,
on
that's
that. I think
that's really
more
rad.
Steve.
We have gone through the occupancy numbers with him in relation to the fire code, and he's signed off on that.
That's all Steve's responsibility.
Yeah, and all those points we can definitely address.
Yeah, the way I read your response, not an issue given similarity in operation of prior tenants. At this occupancy, at this timing, it's not exactly similar. So I just wanted to maybe get a little bit of clarification there. That's all.
Okay.
All right. That's all my questions.
All right. You're good? Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good luck with it all. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sheldon.
May I make a request?
Yeah.
Regarding the agenda?
Sure, yeah.
To consider, since we have the short-term rental committee here,
Yeah, let's move it
that
up.
they,
Yeah, let's move it
give
up.
us a bit of
And
support
people
before
are,
we get into
Yep.
the bonding.
So we're gonna move an item up the agenda. because we know we have residents here and people interested in this. So item number 5, we're going to do next, the review and the discussion of the short-term rental report. And first, I'd like to thank the committee of our residents for doing such fine work and committing your time and your energy to help out our board and to help out our village. And we appreciate all of your hard work, and thank you very much. Okay. So the board members here have received the reports and the information. And is there anybody who has any questions or thoughts or?
No, I didn't know whether the committee had a spokesperson that wanted to present to us their final findings this evening, or whether we would just jump right in based on the.
Yeah, I don't think we have to have.
Yeah, we do have committee members here if they do want to say something. I mean,
We've got it already.
I thought that Alexandria, I know, reached out and it was just supposed to be submitting a final report.
Yeah.
I don't think
Okay,
there's
so they
a
weren't.
particular presentation.
Yeah, I don't think we need.
I think, and frankly, your good work stands on its own,
Yeah.
in the report. So, I still actually need a little more time to digest some of it. I'm just kind of going back and rereading on some things.
I just have some opening remarks if this is the time to do it.
Sure.
All right.
Open and remark.
So opening thoughts, first off, I really appreciate the work of the short-term rental committee and the considerable time and hours they dedicated to help inform the board of trustees as to how they would advise us and address rules and regulations regarding short-term rentals. I also appreciate the many different perspectives provided in the framework, which clearly defined an approach to consider our path forward and other code considerations. Currently, there are roughly 15 short-term rentals from what I can gather in the village. Very soon, if not already, as part of this meeting, the board will consider a rental registry for all rental units. As a result, we'll have a better understanding of the exact number in the near future if enacted. In brief, the short-term rental of a home to someone other than a long-term resident is very similar to the services provided at a hotel, motel, or inn. While technically it's considered a residential rental, the characteristics of which are most similar to that of a business. There are many different types of rentals. Bob Michaels did well to summarize them in his submission to the board enclosed in the meeting packet. As I consider how to best protect the village from possible significant adverse impact described by the committee in their primary report, it is imperative that we are not reactionary, but rather proactive to ensure that our community remains an attractive, safe, historic residential village and supports diverse housing options for current and future residents. As I consider my recommendation and future votes on the matter, please know that our residential character, past and present, safety of our community, and availability of housing options is at the forefront of my mind. I will strongly consider resident opinions, and to that end, I have heard from many residents that they prefer long-term tenants due to safety considerations, perceived or real, neighborliness, investment in the community, etc. I also believe in property rights, recognize short-term rentals offer some benefits to the community, and will consider how we can advance some of those benefits, but not at the expense of our residential character. I look forward to working with the board to determine an appropriate next step, and we'll take the comments from the committee into advisement.
Thank you. Any other input, thoughts? Yeah.
Sure, yeah, I guess I'll go ahead if nobody else.
Yeah, we can go down the table.
I very much appreciate the thoughts on the short-term rental committee. There's certainly a lot of material here to digest and lots of different ideas in terms of zoning regulations. Personally, my concern, and one that I've heard from a lot of residents, is that the housing stock, especially with some of the smaller historic homes in the village, is pretty limited. There's not a lot that comes on the market, and a lot of people can't find places to be here. I've also heard concerns about neighborhoods, especially some of the ones that have a higher housing density, possibly being disrupted by an increase in activity that appears to be commercial. So I think in this regard, it's my comments are close to Trustee Marshall's, which he articulated well. I guess, as given the variety of options of legislation that we could consider here, I think that it's unlikely that we would get right what we want the first time. I think that, we're probably looking at something that can be put in place to address some of these concerns, which could be adjusted in the future. And this is just jumping ahead a little bit, but to give the board something to consider in any way they might take it. Some of the things that I was thinking about as I was going through the report and the different voices from the committee, the rental registry, which is something that's already in place, I think is a great idea. That stands on its own, and I think we've got a lot of agreement on that. The definition of short-term rentals seemed relatively straightforward. You can call it 30 days or less of rental activity. I think there's a lot of legislation that we can draw from in that regard. I've heard from some residents that in considering zoning regulations about this, we want to think about the different regulations for different areas. So, in the commercial district where we have a higher intensity of uses, you might be more permissive of short-term rentals than other smaller neighborhoods too. And I've also heard that in general, in certain neighborhoods like Courtney Circle and surrounding streets, you've got larger lots, you've got more parking. That might also be more tolerant of higher intensities of uses like short-term rentals. And I think I've also, something that I've also heard from residents is that there's not much desire to limit short-term rental uses when the owner is occupying the house. So, I don't really hear from anybody that they want to prohibit people from renting out a room in their house they're occupying to help pay taxes or whatever else they need. So I don't think anything like that would be on the table. And I think there's also a lot of desire for short-term uses for short-term rentals. So let's say up to 90 days per year or something. I've also, I read some comments in the report from Mr. Michaels, I believe, and this is something that Trustee Marshall said, and which I agree with it all, as well, is that this does seem to be more of a commercial use of the property. And I believe that having taxes, having a tax rate which is commensurate with that commercial use would be appropriate. So I guess these are just some of my initial thoughts. Basically the zoning restrictions where you might allow something in the by special permit in the commercial districts, as well as in the part of LDR, which is not part of the the National Register of Historic Districts, that would include Courtney Circle in that area. And in other areas restricted to when the owner is occupying the house, and it would be allowed, and up to 90 days in the calendar year otherwise, and tax those properties at a commercial rate. Those are just some specific things that I was thinking of as I talked to residents for the reports and considered them out.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Those jumped out at me as well. And I really did appreciate very much having the varied opinions, to have two reports at least, or three separate reports to read with different viewpoints, rather than just having one all-encompassing report from the committee. I do appreciate the work very much. I do agree with both Trustee Marshall and Trustee Legab regarding what they have expressed. I, too, have no issues with short-term rentals in the commercial districts, not the historic core of our village where the houses are close together and parking is limited, and impacts would be felt more keenly if you were to have disruptive behavior happening at an adjoining property. I would like us to concentrate I think, any regulations most in that area. Those are the things that jumped out. The other is proximity. If we're talking about a rental registry, and if we do get that passed, and to have, rather than calling it a special use permit, to maybe call it a rental permit of some sort, a special short-term rental permit on its own, to be considered, because there might be different criteria that we would be
wanting to consider that might be different than a special use permit. That the other advantage, I think, to having that process is that it would allow for a public hearing, and neighbors would then be able to come in and comment if there was an application for a short-term rental in their neighborhood. They would be able to hear the presentation for that and also weigh in. I think that was the other thought that I had, as the number, to have a discussion regarding the number of short-term rental permits that might be available in a calendar year, to address the possibility of multiple short-term rentals on one very small street, for instance. Some of the streets in the village are not very large. And I think maybe on a street that has 10 houses, you might want to limit how many short-term rentals permits would be given on that, in that neighborhood. So those are just some thoughts that.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, Lisa. Wow. I agree with all the trustees that have just made their comments. I just want to kind of reiterate some things. Something that trustee Lightgib said about the Courtney Circle neighborhood. I feel strongly that the Courtney Circle neighborhood is part of the personality of our village. Yes, it's not in the historic district per se, but it is in the post-war district. And it definitely houses lots of our, middle-class young families that many of them can afford to buy a house in that area. So
family neighborhood.
Yeah, it really is. And to focus on allowing short-term rentals in that area and not some of the others, I think just really interrupts that dynamic. So I wouldn't want to see that happen. I would like to, first of all, I'd also like to say that having no regulations at all, I think would be a disservice. I really don't think that we could go on without any kind of regulations. It's not done anywhere. Everyone's looking for some kind of structure. I mean, it would not be responsible for a board not to do something. So I'm on the end of really putting something in place. I think we can make exceptions for community events, like when the PGA comes, maybe have a calendar set aside, and the board looks at it every year and says the PGA is coming or the eclipse is coming, and maybe this couple days or this week, we allow for some short-term rentals to happen. I just want to also reiterate the fact that there was a big difference to me from both reports. The report that came from the main committee and then the report that came from Mr. Michaels. Very different, very different philosophies. And there's some sections that I agree on both. But I just wanted to just kind of make some comment on the main committee report. There's a lot of mention that there are currently no complaints, and there hasn't been any police reports, and there hasn't been any destruction, there hasn't been any community upset. There's also only 12, quote, short-term rentals that we know of. Okay, 13. So that's not a lot. But what happens when that becomes 23 and 43 and 73? Okay, so yeah, there's nothing that's going on now. There's only 13. But we're looking ahead for prevention. I'm in medicine. We always look at prevention, right? So we want to put something in place to prevent that nothing happens in the future. And without any regulation, that doesn't protect us for future incoming short-term rentals. We've had a moratorium in place for what, a year and a half?
No.
Almost a year.
No.
Almost a year?
No, less than a year.
Less than a year.
7 months.
7 months, okay. So the committee looked at the last 3 years or so. So that's not a very long time when we've had a moratorium in place for almost a year. So that was a little bothersome. Let's see, would be short-term. Okay. I quoted about the fact that it's small. I'm not really concerned about the fact that short-term rentals bring in parties and havoc and disrupt housing in neighborhoods. I'm really on the premise of what Mr. Michaels was talking about the economic development and the affordability of the houses for families that want to come and live here permanently, and for people that want to raise their children here and want their children to know the child next door that plays at the school that the children goes to. I mean, that is really what a residential community is like. So that disruption would make me concerned. So that's kind of where I'm leaning, why I don't want a lot of short-term rentals, because I don't want to disrupt that flavor of why people live in the village. We already have a process in place for the disruptive, the noise ordinances and the traffic. And so I don't think that that's really ever been an issue for me. So those are kind of my thoughts, along with agreeing with Trustee Marshall and Lakeup and Lampier. But I really do feel that there's some room for some regulation. And like Justin said, whether we start small and then see how that goes and then make some adjustments as we move along. So that's kind of where my focus is.
Thank you. Yeah, all good comments from everybody. And I think, all the information we received from the committee, whatever report, they all have merit, all of the comments, all of the research. And I think what I'm hearing, just the bigger takeaway is we need to find the balance. We just need to find that balance, and how do we start? And I agree with Justin, maybe we start with like a smaller step. There's a lot of moving parts to this. I agree with Lisa as well that I'm less concerned about, disruption like from a party, because we have codes already in place, whether you own a property or you rent a property. If you're noisy, we have codes that can kick in to enforce that, so to me, that's a given in our village. So I agree, it's sort of a non-starter. I think that really, and we have it on the agenda tonight, I mean, it's another item here, the rental registry. I think actually that's a great first step. That kind of gives us the framework. We identify all the rentals in our village. We identify what's short-term, what's just a longer-term rental. We kind of get a handle on that. Like, where are we with that right now? I think that's just great advice from you guys. So, I'm looking forward to us really moving that first piece forward. In terms of like the next steps after that, let's get this rental registry kind of up and running. Let's get all these pieces put in place. We probably, we're already thinking about what we may need for next steps. I'm thinking at some point we are going to need another workshop to work with the public, to work with our residents about what some of these takeaways are, because the residents can read these reports too, and all this good research, So, we obviously want to do something. First step to me is the rental registry, and then we move forward from that. The other thing I'd like to say, and I am worried about the biggest impact on the fabric of our neighborhoods. What would this look like if all of a sudden somebody comes in and starts buying up a lot of properties? Could it happen here? It could. I don't know if it would, but there may be some mechanisms that we're talking about here. So we are protecting the very fabric of our neighborhoods. So those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Just if I could follow up on that too, I think that the fabric in the neighborhoods is one thing that I've heard about. I think we've all expressed similar thoughts here. When I was saying that we won't necessarily get it right the first time, I actually wasn't thinking that we would just start small. And in fact, some of this, I think it's easier to have somewhat of a more overreaching legislation that draws broader strokes that we can add more nuance to later. And I think that there might be some benefits in doing that, writing out some broad restrictions based on what we've discussed in different neighborhoods. For example, allowed a special permit in commercial districts and LDR, the part of LDR that's not in the National Register of Historic Places, the National Register of Historic District, and changing the tax rate to be the commercial rate. Stuff like that I think is worth pursuing, and we could dial that back later as we figure out the nuances that work for our neighborhoods. Jeff, did you have any, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but as far as restricting the number of short-term rentals, it seems like that might be problematic with special permit.
I think if you try to do it per neighborhood, as Trustee Lampier suggested, that might be problematic. If you did it total number,
those have been successfully defended, although I'm not sure why, and the equal protection language of the Constitution. But I think a total number might be okay. And we do it on an annual basis and say,
I know in some municipalities,
first come, first
they do
served.
have a certain number of permits that
Permits
are
that they allow.
available.
Yeah.
And
Seems
you
problematic.
apply for them.
It really does.
Yep, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing you
I
said.
said, it seems problematic,
Yeah, okay,
but they have been defended successfully. So.
okay, thanks, yeah.
So on that topic, you mentioned equal protection. Is that sort of another way of saying, if you limit it to 10 and you already have 10, then nobody new can do it? So you're not providing the same code evenly amongst
Yeah,
all owners?
the way you would do it is, if you limited it to 10, it'd be, they'd be in line on the morning that you were going to grant the permits.
Right, so now let's bring that back to another idea, which is randomization. So I just want to speak briefly, and Mr. Lindbeck, I don't know if John is still here.
No, he left.
But he presents a very interesting case, and I think a good case. Any resident who's been here for a while and has a house and lives in a beautiful residential community, as our entire village is, when they move in, they may move in with the ideas of starting a family. It may be down on Courtney Circle, it may be on Rand, or even on any of our streets. And as you look around the community, you generally know I'm moving into a residential neighborhood. These are residents. I don't think anybody considers a short-term rental a resident, even though technically by law that's what it is. A short-term rental is a visitor. They're not a resident, though again, by law, they're considered a resident. What I'm getting at is nobody necessarily wants, maybe a few, a short-term rental as their immediate next neighbor. Where I live, I really know well my neighbors, Steph and Dan, right, and Edie, to my left and to the right, and the mayor's across the street. I know who they are. There's an apartment, kitty corner across from me, next to you, that has 4 or 5 residents, but you get to know faces and names. And when my daughter, who's been walking to school since she was 1st grade, but she's walked to Jefferson Road with a very small group in the morning with an adult, but on the way home by herself, right? And there's something nice about knowing that everybody here has a vested interest in the property, living here long-term. As you start to think about short-term rentals and this potential of accommodating select property owners with the ability to essentially have a business, or creating avenues and mechanisms by which even visitors that come see us might like to stay in, there is some value there to a short-term rental. But it's really, really, I think, unfortunate if somebody who lives in a property, has lived there like John did for 20 years, and has a short-term neighbor come up immediately next door, that forever that short-term rental will be at that location. So I think one of the things that we should strongly consider is, do we limit the number of non-owner occupied short-term rentals and create a method by which they move? That could be a randomization, right? So you have 10 permits, and if you have 13 applicants, you draw a lot of them. And it just so happens that somebody can't, do it that year. Okay, for that year, they're a long-term rental, right? If you've got 20 applicants and you still only have 10 short-term rentals, it's a 50-50 chance. I don't mind necessarily taxing it as a business. I don't want to tax it as a business, though, with the idea of having that be a limiting factor on profitability. I think rather I would just create a max number, do permitting, and randomize it. And if it happens to be that we only have 10 and you don't have a new entrant, and maybe as a result, the one next to John might be like that for a little while, I think then you go in, and I think we should do this. No single property can be a short-term rental for any more than 3 out of 5 years or 3 out of 7 years. That way, it's not a permanency. It's not a given that person will always be a short-term rental, because it is a profitable business. And once that becomes a profitable business at that location, there's no reason to ever turn it over to another family. So I just think that's really important to think about, capping the number of non-owner occupied homes and creating a degree by which there has a requirement that they move into a long-term rental over time. So no one person has to bear the burden of the business venture next door or in their neighborhood.
And that would prevent people from coming in specifically to use it as a short-term, they buy it and renovate it as a short-term rental, because they would have to have other ways to use it, either move in for a while, right?
You could still do it. You could certainly still do it, but it's not a 5-year plan.
Right.
And by having a top limit number and then randomizing it, there's no permanency that you even could do it in perpetuity, right? It also spreads the opportunity set to all homeowners under the same basis. So if I, for example, wanted to take a job in Paris and live away from the village for 5 years.
For Denmark.
Or Denmark, or wherever it may be, I can go in and apply for the same permit. And I don't have, like, if I'm the 11th person, I might get lucky, I may not. And if I don't, I rent it long-term.
These are all really good things to bring up. We have a lot of agenda items. And so I'm thinking, and also one of the items is the rental registry law, which I think can address at least a bit of this. But I do think we're headed towards a workshop, towards really a larger discussion with the entire community. 'Cause, I mean, you're all raising great points, great ideas. But, so I think that's really where we're headed. Anyway, okay, so, I know we're supposed to have this public hearing, Bernie Donigan. Why don't we do, because I know Mr. Obermeyer is here.
If I may, Mayor.
Sitting patiently, yes.
Should I just make one final comment on short-term rental?
Of course.
Thank you. I also like the idea of creating a large structure that has different dials. You put it in place, and you may have those dials ratcheted way down, or you may ratchet them up, but you create the structure, so that way you don't have to put out fires. There was a note in the packet specific to the different sorts of, I'm sorry, just a minute. Oh yeah, the different types of communities that exist. And the second type of community.
Or the fire, for putting out the fire.
Yeah, so there's the first one where you put out the fire. Nobody wants to have to do that, right? But the second one was interesting because it said prompt action would be necessary to prevent the fires from starting. I've never known a municipality to have prompt action at anything. So we almost have to address it as though there will be a fire. You build the structure, and then you make sure you have everything in place. And it speaks a little bit to, well, Steve's not here, but when we talk about the Monroe County hazard response, right? It's the same sort of thing. You create the plan well in advance of needing it. So, all right, that's
Thank you. No, thanks everybody for your input. So next up is the DPW bathroom project update with Mr. Obermeyer. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
No, I didn't get any plans in my packet.
There was no plans presented.
This is an update.
I could have brought extra plans, but
Well, you've all seen the plans before.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've all gotten copies.
I have them on my computer.
No, that's okay.
Is it the same ones?
It's the same ones, right?
I have
Yeah.
them right away.
Okay, so Dorothea's going to grab these for the board. Thanks. Yeah.
And I thought, the last communication I had from Scott Harder, it seemed to me that the village had arrived at what I thought was the right answer. In other words, if you have two unisex bathrooms, toilet rooms, then, and one is handicapped and one is not. As long as the handicap, with signage on the door, you can identify which is which very easily. And once there is, if those two toilet rooms are on the same level and the accessibility is there, I see no reason that I know of that the code would limit having just one unisex, handicapped unisex toilet room, and then the other be unhandicapped. So
ADA compliant and non-ADA.
right, and so I think Mr. Lau said something about you need urinals, and we can very easily put a urinal in each of the toilet rooms, and it would just make the addition a little bit longer, but it wouldn't affect that property line, which is 16'6" property line. So,
A1.1, the two bathrooms look similar in width. And there was a drawing that we had seen.
well, this was an earlier one.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah, see,
Yeah, and you see this
That's all
one,
you have,
Yeah.
okay.
this one is over
Oh, I
the,
missed the other plan, where's the
They're not
staff?
in here.
They're not.
Oh, they're not, never mind,
Yeah.
okay.
So the new one
yeah,
is not in these drawings.
This is the right one.
No,
okay.
No, none of these.
none of them are right,
Sorry.
no, we don't have the right one.
I can open it up on my computer.
Can you send it to Dorothea and you can print it?
Send it to
Sure,
me.
sure.
When we did that, then we know, then we're really looking at what he's talking about, so we can do that. And we-
While they're
Let's kill the
working on
tree.
that, could I just ask a quick question to Zach? So Zach, did you happen to see the one with the 2 unisex, 1 ADA, 1 non?
Yeah.
Okay. Comments?
Thoughts?
Just as long, I mean, again, whatever we get is going to be better than what we
But it doesn't meet your needs.
It does.
Okay, well, you know, that, we want to meet the needs.
Yeah, it does in the sense that it will allow 2 people to use the bathroom at once, rather than one person having to go outside if there's a problem.
And 2 showers.
2 showers, laundry facility.
Storage of some sort.
And do you have enough storage, you know, your lockers are in, the. I mean,
Yeah,
I
even the
know.
lockers are in there, along with storage for just the general use of the bathrooms, the showers, and all that stuff is there, so it would work.
It'd be workable.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You'd be excited.
It's a billion times better than what we have.
They'd have a ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
Could
he's,
you, maybe this is not the right question for you, do you remember the cost that particular illustration had come to? Was it like?
Was it the least expensive option?
No, I think it
this
was
is the next one up.
close to
It
the,
was close to the least.
Yeah.
the bigger of the 2 original. If I remember.
That was closer to the little one. Anyway. And then, while they're working on that, can you recall if functionally, aside from just having one,
So,
this was the smallest square footage that appeared workable for what you're looking to do?
Yes, I mean, if that's what we're going for, is the smallest square footage, absolutely. It's accommodating in a way that.
And it's on our land.
Better than what we get.
It's on our land, it's not required.
Yeah, but then, don't think we would need.
could we print it with?
I don't know if variance is necessary.
I don't think you can. You can get it out.
This wouldn't be
Well,
publicly
we'd be
accessible.
going up to the lot line, so we
Yeah.
would need a variance, or we would, because we, as a municipality,
Sure.
and because we're meeting a certain need,
You
we
You
could,
could waive.
we could waive that, you know, but,
This whole conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure when I can't get access to your
That's fine.
your internet, but this is the last plan.
Yeah, that's, I remember it.
oh, yeah, right.
And we, can- as I said, we could easily put a urinal in each of these toilet rooms and just extend the building a little bit this way, and it wouldn't affect the property line overly.
Do you need one?
I was gonna say, do we need a urinal? I mean, when you go to a bathroom, why do you take a urinal?
I think Steve said it was required.
It was what?
No,
No.
I thought it came from Steve.
I didn't think so.
well, he mentioned that in
It's so
the,
old fashioned?
but,
There is some code in there.
There is?
well, it's.
I mean, when you go to a restaurant, there's no urinal, you go to the bathroom.
Right, it's section, chapter 29 in the code, but it doesn't talk about urinals for the number of people we're talking about. I mean, your staff is how many?
It'll be
8. And 50, you know, if you're less than 15, you don't have to do a lot of things, like a drinking fountain is not required either. So I don't believe the urinal is necessary.
Right.
And that's what, you know.
Did you have a cost estimate of what you put in front of us here?
Yes, well,
I don't go to a restaurant, there's no urinal anymore.
I haven't actually done a cost estimate for the last version, but that's the version of that is very close to the second one. And that,
think it was, what, 170 to 190 or something in that range?
Well, I've got the,
Is this hurricane proof? It's a nice bathroom. It's like a half a house cost.
That's the day and age we live in.
Welcome to prevailing wage.
Yeah.
You know about prevailing wage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just,
Really tries it.
yeah.
So what are we supposed to be doing here tonight? Let's clarify what our goal is for the DPW bathroom. Are we voting on a specific one? What-
Finalize which one.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're trying to
and let's-
finalize which one, and then we're going to vote on moving forward on getting it built. Is that what we're doing here?
Then put it out to an RFP, and then
Put
you
it
make
out
a
to bid.
decision
Okay.
if you
Yeah.
want to build it or not. You make a decision how you fund it, you make a decision, you put it in the capital plan or not, what priority it takes, what give up because you want to do this.
So tonight, we're making a decision on which one we want to move forward on for the
With
process.
Getting an RFP.
Getting an RFP,
Yeah.
right.
It'll be an actual
Yeah.
bid, it won't be an RFP.
It'll be a
Okay.
bid.
It won't be an RFP, it's a
The
bid.
direction will be, we
Yeah,
will
it'll be
direct
full bid
the clerk.
specs.
So we're trying to see
Or the
we
treasurer.
have 3 options in front of us, is that right?
right.
Okay.
And the third option is the one with 2 unisex toilet rooms, one's handicapped and one's not. And I think there was an email to that effect, to the effect of the cost of that one. And it was similar to option number 2, which was anywhere from $149,500 to $207,000 construction, but then there'd be some extra cost added to this option too, because that one didn't include all the toilet fixtures that the new one would have. So it would be another 10 or 15% more.
Okay, and then Zach, we had a discussion about, essentially the shell being built, and the crew could do the installation of fixtures too.
Yeah,
There could be things to offset.
It's something that we'd be able to do in-house.
Yeah, so whatever we could bring in-house, like painting,
Painting fixtures, for
Fixtures.
lights, the plumbing fixtures, as long as everything is stubbed out,
yeah,
roughed in, and it's contained, sealed up, weathered, all that stuff, we could probably take it.
heck, I'll help you paint. I mean, we got to get this going.
All right, so then are we,
So I think what we need is the 3 options and the prices on 3, so that we can see what we're.
I think we just go with this one.
Yeah, I'm
I
fine
mean,
with the
if
one.
we're gonna go get a bid.
Satisfies everything.
Yeah, it meets all the, that's the most
It's the
important thing.
smallest of any of the 3.
And we don't have to go through
We don't have to go
canal
through the
board.
canal board to do
Okay.
it.
No.
If you need another estimate, I can do it. I emailed Scott at one point with the estimate for this third version.
Right.
But it wasn't part of the original report, and I don't have that.
Mhm.
I mean,
Fran, the lower end of that price, that cost range, what kind of materials are you looking at?
Well,
Building,
the-
shell.
The building, it can be wood frame. There's nothing that, because the building is already partially wood frame. So it has its category, construction category is essentially wood frame. And I calculated that earlier, and you could easily get enough square footage available to you to build these toilet rooms. No problem. So that, it could be all wood frame. The issue, there's going to be some issues as to where the utilities are. That's kind of a biggie, so we got to find that. And then the engineering that's going to have to take place in order to that, because it's a wage rate job, the construction cost being below 500,000 means that you don't have to have separate primes, but you still have to have, the wage rate stuff going on. And that, I've tried doing projects in the past, municipal projects with having the owner, or having the general contractor provide their own design build people, which would save a lot of cost on engineering. But every time I seem to get my head handed to me in a basket, because the contractors don't want to do that. So they're afraid that they can't compete that way. So we probably have to get a couple engineers involved, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and put the documents together, and then it had to go out for public bid. And certainly in the bid documents, we could identify that, what limits that they have to do. In other words, if they have to just provide the stuff so that you can bring in fixtures and do it yourself and all that. I would need a clear outline from you probably as to what exactly you could do.
We would sort that, exactly what you would be able to do. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay trying to move this forward to the
Yeah, me
bid
too.
at the least amount of, or the most maximum amount of work that you can do in your group, right? So if you guys work together to get that, and then we get a firm price, and then we can take it from there.
I mean, for instance, if you were able to, do the foundation, do the excavation. I don't know if you've got any guys that could, do the foundation, but if you can do that, more power to you.
Unfortunately, I don't think that skill set is in.
Okay, all right. So, but you could do the excavation, which would save some cost, right?
Possibly, yeah. I think what I would be most comfortable with is just doing the function.
Okay.
So installing toilets, any lighting fixtures, as long as everything was working.
Okay, so the action item is, you're going to come up with a list,
Yeah.
with the crew of what can be done, sort of in-house, as we would say.
Yeah.
And then you can spec it out from there, okay? With the dollar amount, okay? And then we can take action. Yeah. Justin, did you want to say something? Were you?
No.
Okay,
I'm
you're good?
If the board's good on which layout, can they just go right to getting the engineering done so we can put it out to bid?
Again, I think we have to get it out to bid, so if
Yeah.
that means getting engineering.
I mean, I'm fine with it, but I'm just
Once they
saying.
do the
Yeah.
engineering, they can prep the bid docs, and I can bring it back to the board and we can move forward.
Because we know which one we want.
Yeah.
42 inches.
Okay, so do we have to make a motion?
I would say that's your motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to advance the bathroom as described.
Does it have a number? Can we say like 1A or 1B?
No, it's the one that we were showing online
Because
with the two
that's kinda
bathrooms,
vague.
one ADA compliant, one not.
Excuse me.
Hang on, guys, hang on. We're trying to make a motion, excuse us.
Is there a number for the plan?
Is there a title or a number on the plan?
Yeah, it's A1.
Okay. Thank you.
A1C.
A13.
Sorry.
So it'd be the motion for DPW bathroom design with the following number?
Yeah, based on sheet 1A 1.3.
So make a motion to move the DPW bathroom to A1 as described in A1.3 forward such that we can bring it to bid, including engineering work as well, Zach and our engineers coordinating how much work can be done to the maximum degree in-house.
I second.
Good one.
Good one. I second that.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you.
Let the crew know. Let the crew know. Absolutely.
Thank
Fran,
you.
thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much, too.
Thank you.
And thanks for your patience.
Figure out ways.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just stuff.
I can hear the toilets flushing now.
Not the urinals, though,
No.
right? A1.3 did not include urinals.
Right, we did not.
Yeah, we want, yeah.
And,
Okay. Let's see, we're bouncing around here a little, aren't we?
Where would you like to go?
I know. Do we want to do the? just
Bernie
the-
Donigan?
The Bonnigan, yeah, the
let's-
Donigan. We
let's just
skipped that
let's
one.
just go back to 2 and move.
Yeah.
look, are we doing 2 now?
Yep, we're doing the South and Wood Street bond.
Yep. So we don't have anybody here from Bernie Donigan at this point because this is pretty much.
Gentlemen, can you speak in the other room? Zach, can you guys just talk in the other room? Just, because I know you
Thank
want
you.
to follow up. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so as I forwarded to the board all the bonding needs and legislation that needs to be done.
Here we
Which I
are.
received from our bond attorney, Tim McGill. I must be tired tonight. Our attorney drew up a secret resolution. Nice to meet you. I had it in front of me. I lost it in my whirlwind of papers here, but I believe the board has seen that resolution late today.
So that's the next step.
Late today, later than I intended.
Yes. So that needs to be done before you do any of the bonding resolutions.
Okay.
Is there any questions so far?
Couple of questions and a few. So the first one is, on the calendar, what are we exactly approving? Like, is this the final approval for the bond, or is this just getting us to the next step to discuss more?
This is your authorizing documents to allow you to bond.
It's allowing us to bond, but it's not the issuing of the bond.
No, that's.
Nor deciding the dollar amount of the bond.
It kind of does.
I mean, it mentions 950.
It does establish that.
That's the maximum, but you can always come in under.
You can always come in
So
under.
up to 950.
Up to.
It's establishing the right to bond up to that amount.
It's establishing the right to bond up to that amount specific for infrastructure. We have noted South and Wood, but it could be other infrastructure.
That is included in the resolution.
That's in the resolution.
So what this is essentially saying is, we are authorizing the issue of a bond of up to 950.
Correct.
For infrastructure.
Correct.
Designating it.
Whether or
to-
not we use it or issue the bond is not what we're determining today.
That is not your decision tonight, because you don't know. That decision isn't made yet.
We don't have all the
You have to
information
go out
yet.
to bid.
Yeah, we don't
You have to put it out to bid. This
Right.
allows you to go out to bid, because there's certain timeframes. As you can see, there's a resolution, newspaper notice I got to put out immediately tomorrow. Then there's a newspaper notice after that expires, that has to go out for another timeframe. Until all that expires, you can't go out to bid. So.
So would you say this is almost like the preliminary work leading up to?
Correct.
Okay.
If you don't do this, you can't bond. That's the bottom line. You have to start.
It stops here, basically, if you don't do it.
How much of the South and Wood project have we already paid for that would be able to be paid back by this bond?
And everything.
Right, so everything that has already been spent, we can retroactively pay back.
Yes.
How far back can we do that? And is it only South and Wood?
It's
Like
whatever we did the engineering on. Anything
Okay.
we do engineering on, we can pay back ourselves.
going back to the beginning of sort of that project? And
Yeah, we knew when we were doing the GPI
Yeah,
that we were going to pay it out of the bond resolution.
right. Okay. Do you have an estimate today as to how much additional cost South and Wood with the engineer work that we put together will cost?
My understanding from Zach, GPI is looking to possibly come in next month with their final engineering number. I did hear that they anticipate the cost to be a little bit larger because the base on wood is problematic. So it is going to dip into whatever we considered extra.
They did, remember Zach talked about the core sampling that they do, which is really necessary because wood essentially is almost like a driveway. You know, there's the underlying bed is just not there. So Wood Street really, the assessment that was made from the coring was that it has to be rebuilt.
Correct. I mean, there's.
You don't know till you core.
And honestly, we're not, the wonderful thing about estimates is they're estimates until you put it out to bid.
Yeah.
We are never going to know what anything costs until it goes out to bid.
You get a range of
It's
things.
wonderful to see these estimates, and they help. But until you get your bid out there, you're not going to see what your dollars are going to pay.
And we don't put the bid out until the engineering work's done.
Correct.
Right.
We paid for the engineering work, or that bill hasn't come in yet?
We paid for
We've
some of
been
it.
paying as we go.
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
what we paid.
Yeah, I want to say around 30,000 we've paid. so far.
Probably. I'd say we're about 30.
Okay, and
Maybe
that
a little more.
engineering work lasts pretty much indefinitely, right?
I think they oversee the constructions,
Yeah.
so I think they're going to be there if there's something pops up problematic during, but I think we have a set number on the, agreed upon number for the total engineering for the project.
Okay. And this speaks a little bit to the budget, but at present, the budget work that you've done so far, I know you haven't presented any tentative budget to us yet, but the budget work that you brought forward last time did have a line item for this bond repayment embedded in it, is that correct?
Yes, it did. And I will stand firm that it's a total guesstimate.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Sure, so I guess, I don't want to repeat myself too much. I've said this before a lot of times. I am concerned that we don't have a multi-year capital plan in place, and we're moving ahead with taking out $1 million in loans or in debt, probably to be followed by another $1 million next year. And at that point, we're basically up to our annual revenue. And we're going to be paying down that debt for the next at least 15 years. We've got the DPW bathroom, which is another cost that's coming up. All the rest of the roads in the village need to be restructured. Village Hall has overdue maintenance. The DPW building needs other work. I guess what I would like to do, I really think that the next meeting on the 20th is a very critical one when we go over the initial multi-year capital plan. I would like to focus on that and then revisit this in light of having that plan in place. If we're a week away from doing that, I'd like to take a look at that first and then vote to move.
I can tell you that this is the number one item in the multi-year capital plan, kicking it off. We've been looking at that. I'd like to sort of think about a context for this, because there is so much work to do, because so many capital improvement projects, big projects in our village have been deferred for more than a decade. And that's just a simple fact. So what we're dealing with now is it's beyond just catching up. I mean, we're really trying to at least make some investments finally back into our village. That's finally what we're doing. I mean, we had more than a decade of litigation which deferred most of these projects, actually probably all of them. And so we're just trying to right the ship, because as Dorothea says, this is the good debt. This is what you want. We're now investing in our infrastructure, our community. We're getting projects done for our residents that have been deferred for years. So am I concerned about taking on too much debt? Absolutely. But I sure think at this point, where we are now, with this project being identified going back years and years and years, we have all of the information in front of us. I think we need to move forward. It doesn't preclude a capital plan at all. We're all on board with that. But I think we have to take some action and do some work for our residents and get the big stuff, start on the big stuff. This project was identified how many years ago? Sutherland, same thing. I mean, Wood Street's never really been done properly. That's what the core sample showed. Yeah, Lily.
From a timeline standpoint, given that we will have the spreadsheet on the 20th, would it work with the bond, RFP, to wait until we have that in front of us? Do you understand where I'm going?
I get where you're going, and I'm going to throw another curve into there.
Okay.
I get where Justin's going, but we're going to present to you next week. Doesn't mean you're going to bless it as a multi-year capital plan. And I have very little doubt that's going to happen. Just understanding, I'm being honest.
It's a work in progress.
It is.
We're all working together.
Progress. We have an RFP that we're going to discuss on the multi-year capital plan that we received, that you were sent today.
I saw that.
I think the adoption of that plan is more steps than just next meeting. You're going to want to meet with the public. You're going to want to do other things with that, because what you're deeming as priorities, you want the buy-in from your public as well. We also have a budget we're working on. All these things, unfortunately, do need to stand on their own 2 feet at some point. The more I understand tying them all together, we're just not at that point, because you haven't adopted a plan. We're getting there, we're very close, but you can't keep stalling this project, the budget, you can't stall it for the one thing. You just can't, the clock is ticking. We're paying for engineering, and I don't think you just want to put it on the shelf. And if you're going to pay for that engineering, then it's coming out of your fund balance.
Let's make use of it.
We've done all these steps, we agreed to do this, so now we're going to pay the bonding attorney for drawing up the bond paperwork, but then we're going to let it sit again. I mean, this isn't making financial sense the more we stall, is what I'm saying. Just from the accounting point of me, I don't want to pay for bills that we're getting nothing done. I mean, it's like doing the engineering for the DPW and all that. We'll get all that done, we're going to pay for that, and then we say, let's not do that for 3 years.
And we also have, because we got that grant the first year I was in office, the $100,000 to bring all the sidewalks up to code and ADA compliance. That grant isn't going to hang around forever. We have to.
Right.
And also, once we use that grant, I can go right back and get a different grant for us, but we have to show that we're
using
the grant. That's how that's.
I'm just saying, you're here,
We're here now.
maybe we
it.
finish these projects, we do these projects, we're adopting the thing. At some point, they're all going to come to a head and we'll be done and we'll have the one. But this always needs to be done. You're not getting rid of the road project. You're not getting rid of your budget.
It just gets worse.
And you need to get this done anyway. So at some point, it's all going to be tied into a pretty little bow. They need to stand on their own two legs right now. They just do. It's the only way I can describe it. I mean, I'd like to say next week it'll be magical and everybody's going to be happy with it. I just don't see that. I think that's more to that. I don't.
See, I guess I'm an optimist because we've discussed all of these things for so long. I don't think there are going to be any surprises on this multi-year plan that we haven't discussed, time after time after time. I don't think I can probably name 5 right here that are going to be on it. So we just look at that, we move forward, let's go.
And South and Wood is number 1.
Right. And the
on the capital
DPW
plan in
bathrooms.
terms of priority, because we're moving this along in the pipeline.
And I would rather, and this is me, I would rather not do bonding resolutions and stuff in a budget workshop. I'd rather do it at a full meeting. They're all publicly noticed, but your regular meetings are more, formal for that possibility.
This doesn't tie the board into a decision regarding the bond
Where to spend
resolution.
it, where to spend it, right. It's getting the money available, and then we can.
It's the board agreeing this is.
Like sending out an RFP for the.
It's a little different. It's setting in motion what you need to get the money.
That's all it is, it's the prelim work.
You can decide when you look at the bids and you don't like the bids or the interest rates. It's not saying.
There's a number of outs. Yeah, Zach.
I was just going to ask, trustee what in that capital year plan may trigger you to defer this even further?
To me, if you're taking out a loan for half of your annual revenue, that's a pretty big deal. And right now, we don't know what we're looking at. We know that we've got a lot of deferred work all over the board. And to me, it's just not responsible to take out this much debt or to even move it forward substantially and say that this is what we're going to do without looking at that picture. Going back several years on this board, before I was on the board, I know that there was a budget process that, we did look at overall areas and expenses on roads that were coming up and that kind of thing, what was due. I agree with the mayor that the litigation over 10 years really tossed us off of that track, and we're trying to get back on that track right now. But the way that we're going to do that is by having a plan. And we can always say that there's something that's urgent that we have to do, and we've got to go ahead with this, we've got to go ahead with the next step. And all that stuff says we don't have to plan right now. I've been saying for a couple of years, and I've voted against a couple of budgets because we haven't had a plan in place.
Well, this has
and
been
it
on
hasn't
the plan
happened.
for 7 years.
We don't have a plan.
If I may.
Yeah.
So this is just a debt conversation. This is federal, not local. the federal debt right now, and this is debt to revenue, right? So to your point, how much debt do you take on for how much revenue do you have coming in that you can appropriate? Throughout the 60s and 70s, the US was roughly 1.5 to 2, right? Never got over 2. That's the entirety of the federal debt dedicated to lots and lots of different projects. It went up to about 3 to 1. Today it's 6.5 to 1. That is to say 5 trillion, right, to 1 trillion in revenue, or that's the ratio anyway. So what I think Justin, is saying, and I appreciate it, which is this is a lot of debt for one item that will basically take away the ability to do lots of other items for some amount of time. And I think all he's saying is, let's just slow down and make sure with a good long-term plan, that's in fact what we want to do. And that when we do it, we're telling residents, all this isn't going to get done because we're doing this.
But this is not restricting us to this one project. It's allowing us to use it for other infrastructure.
So this goes back to sort of my comments earlier, which is why I was asking the questions as well.
Right.
Just what does this have to be used for?
Right.
What does it commit us to, right?
So it gives us
And the
flexibility.
answer right now is it doesn't commit us to anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So why don't we keep things moving? Anybody want to make a motion?
Let me just add one thing.
We have to, hang on.
The form that you are going to, this magical form that's going to come next Tuesday, that's going to, make all of our dreams come true. Can that form come to Justin and Dave, I'm electing you guys, by Friday?
No, I'm saying that, no.
Okay.
No.
So that they could see it on Monday and look at everything
No,
together?
we're gonna get it, I'm sorry, I'm lost my.
Wait,
Tuesday's the next budget
today's
meeting.
Tuesday.
Yes, it
So
will
it's
go
in
out
one
Friday.
week, and it will go out Friday.
It will go out.
That's the intention of it
It'll go out
going out Friday.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we're having
So-
another internal meeting.
So there's other forms that have already been submitted to us. Is it doable for that form to be incorporated with the other forms that we've gotten with Dave and Justin to take a look at that on Monday and just see
That's
what
the
we have?
intention.
Wait, before the trustee meeting, before the budget meeting on Tuesday, so that we can see if we've got something to look at, so that we can base what we need on Tuesday.
It won't matter.
And I'm not gonna.
If I could.
No,
Yeah.
why won't
If I
it?
could, it won't matter because it doesn't prioritize with resident input, right? So you have a lot of detail of what you want to spend money on, but it's the prioritization of it, the order.
Well, I
of it.
agree, but it's going to give us something.
So what it'll give us is we have a lot of money that we need, that we don't have.
And it's gonna stay that way regardless.
It's going to stay that way regardless. And to Justin's point, if we know we need a lot of money and we're dedicating this much to this, right?
To what? The
To
wind farm?
infrastructure at this
Oh,
point.
infrastructure,
And I'd
okay.
say loosely infrastructure, which is why I was asking the question earlier. Is that the right amount of money to dedicate to infrastructure? So I think regardless of what happens on Tuesday, we're not going to have a long-term capital plan in place. And this is going to, with the engineering work that gets done, we're going to put it out to bid. We're going to probably get a bid back by the end of May, one would hope. Okay, so we get a bid back. And we will or will not know how much the state's going to chip in.
We know right now we have 100,000
Okay.
for the grant.
Okay. And there's no other grants or no other.
No, we could go out and, once
We could try to source again.
We tried to source again,
Mhm.
okay.
We always would try.
But what we don't know is how much of that 950, right? So we'll get a bid back, and we don't have to accept the bid. We don't have to move
Right,
forward,
right.
but we may be prepared to. So I guess where I'm at with this is I completely respect, Justin, your view. I mean, this is a lot of debt. But Jeff, if you could help me understand and just confirm what, Dorothea, you've already said, this is an infrastructure debt issue that allows you to use it for any infrastructure. It just so happens to name Southwood.
It's road-based.
Okay, so it could be used anywhere.
Hold on. I didn't do any of this work.
Okay.
We don't know.
Yeah, I knew that as soon as I asked it.
So it's
No,
road-based infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's for
So it's
the
wide
road,
open.
complete road
Right.
work. It is designed around that. That was the limits
Right.
that I was
Okay.
given to give to the bond attorney, and that's what they wrote. They wrote it for South and Wood, and any other road project that need to be completed with any remaining funds. Because we
And-
wanted that limit.
You've seen, Zach, you've seen and we've all seen the road work, like what needs to happen over time. If you've got $1.5 million hypothetically over 3 years to spend on road work, are you spending 850 of it, 900,000 of it on South and Wood?
It's not going away, so it has to be done. I mean, you have to start somewhere. And the rest of the roads per my schedule that I have set up now, you have South and Wood, we have Sutherland and Shane all back to back.
Yep.
You can phase them out, but all you're doing is deferring that work.
Sure.
And the longer you defer the work, the higher
worse
the
condition of the
cost.
road becomes, and the cost becomes more. So by doing that, it's not really helping anything. And the rest of the work that is scheduled to be done is all surface treatments to maintain the integrity of the current surface. So oil and stone is a cheaper method to do that.
Right.
Those roads are, you can do that with those roads, you can't do that with these roads. So preserving these roads it doesn't make any sense.
Another question. So when this project was identified like 7 or 8 years ago, what would it have cost? What was it,
It was
350?
about $80,000 for the curb, all the ADA compliance work, and about maybe around $100,000 to mill and pave, and the manholes, drainage inlets, to grade.
Okay, so, it was deferred and here we are now. And then Dorothea, we just are closing out the last bond?
Yes.
And how much was the last bond for?
Oh, boy. 450?
Something like that.
Yeah,
Half a
about
mil?
450. We're closing that bond out with our payment in the upcoming budget year. We would have a double bond payment in this
For
upcoming.
the one, yeah.
We're closing that one out, and we're also closing out a lease.
And we're closing out another lease. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Justin.
So I just want to be a little more clear about the multi-year capital plan here too. I agree that the full thing is going to take a while and require public input in order to be approved. We don't have any of this yet. We've got something about vehicles, about how we're going to maintain our fleet over the years that was presented to us last meeting. We just finished the street inventory to see what all the condition of the streets are in the village. But we don't even know longer term, like, hey, we spend this much this year, this much the next year. We don't even have a general sketch of that that's been presented to the board as a part of that capital planning.
And you'll see it,
Yeah,
you'll see it
all
Friday.
the road
And you-
ratings are listed alongside the roads in the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ratings are all there. I can provide those to you so you can see, what those ratings
You
are.
can send everything out again.
But the fact is.
So I would like to talk about what, I'm not saying that we need all the pieces together to have every single day planned out in the next 3 to 5 years with resident input and everything, but to not sit down as a board and say, these are the street conditions, this is what we're going to do this year, this is what we're going to do the year after that, this is what we're going to do the year after that. To me, I don't know why we're not having that conversation before we're moving ahead.
Well, I thought that's what I was producing for you guys by putting together, the road schedule for the next 5 years.
And understand, we're at this point because this board has given direction to do this. This isn't something that just showed up. This board has given direction to hire the engineer to engineer South and Wood. This board has given direction to our treasurer and our clerk to work with the bonding agent. We've had presentations from the bonding agent, financial advisors. We are here now, right now, with an action to be taken by this board because of the prior direction from this board, period.
Are you making a motion?
In the meantime, Justin, can you just put together a checklist and we can check off what you need so that we can get something written down, a preliminary draft of a long-term capital plan, and that's, just get a checklist so we know exactly what we need. What we've already got and what we need.
I think we have the pieces.
Okay, I want to
If
see
I
a
could just
checklist.
jump, I understand.
All right, let's just get a checklist so we can all see.
Frustrated on that myself. But the bottom line is, we're going to have, I believe, everything everybody's looking for.
Okay.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
next week.
And the cover sheet should be the
Next
checklist.
week.
I know it sounds simplistic, but if we have a checklist and then they're all checked off and everything's in the packet, then we can move forward on getting just a draft, which is separate than this. But I'm just saying, let's just do this because we're talking about it and talking about it.
If this is something I'm supposed to produce for you guys, because these are all based on the schedules that I put together, I'm not exactly sure.
Exactly.
You're
That's what
given
I'm
the
saying.
information to Dorothea, and then there's a tabulation of the year-over-year total expense with all the different things. So
Yes, you've already done that.
We've done that.
It's
We're
all done.
working on it.
I know,
We're almost through all the sheets.
all on one sheet together.
And I think you guys received it.
We're getting-
We have an agenda item before us, we have an action that we should, so I would welcome a motion. We can sort through a checklist, we can, whatever.
I don't want to talk to the checklist. What I'm talking to is before you decide a motion on the bonding thing, you need to do a resolution for seeker.
We
I
have to do
just want to make
seeker.
sure we don't, because.
Yeah, seeker first.
I just jump in.
Thank you,
Were you?
Jeff.
Thank you.
You were ready to pounce.
That's all I want to get out.
May I make
Yes,
another comment?
yep, sure.
Mayor, you mentioned that all of this is from the board direction. I feel personally like there's been a lot of administrative direction down this path. And at every single point, I've said, I want to see a plan before we actually take on a lot of debt. And so to me, I understand the urgency. I understand the importance of this infrastructure. I believe it is going to be primary. But to do this without even having some semblance of that plan in front of us, to me, it's still not the responsible way.
Justin, I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate your concern since you've taken office about not having a long-term capital plan. You've been invited to internal meetings, you haven't shown up. You've been busy, I know, I get that. But hang on. First year I was in office. All I want to say is there is not one village in this county that has a long-term municipal capital plan. We have always worked from our road schedules, our equipment schedules, different types of internal needs that are coming up for the current budget year and then usually going into the next year. I love the idea of a long-term capital plan. I think it's a good way to sort of give a solid framework and present that to our community. It's far more transparent. I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, but we're coming into a middle of a movie that's been going on since the village was in place. We've never had a long-range capital plan. We have a dedicated staff here trying to put together internally the plan for this board and still run the village on a daily basis. Please, that's all we're saying. We all want to do the same thing, and I know you feel you can't take this action, but I think you'll be pleased when you see it right at the top of this capital plan. You'll see that it tracks with what, who knows better than our DPW superintendent and our crew, how things should work on the road schedules and all of that. You've got the data, you've done the road reviews, you know your equipment schedules. All of that now is, I think, really being consolidated in a meaningful way going forward to make decisions that normally we made over a 1 to 2 year cycle. Now we're pushing it out further. And along with that is all the great work we're doing on the reserves. So I know you want all the pieces together right now. We just don't have them all right now. But I can tell you, we need to get this work done for our village. And if you want to bail, she made it clear you have other bailing out points. I don't know where else to go. I mean, we have a lot of other agenda items here, and I'd like to see the board take some positive action, at least move this forward.
You like my bailout point?
I like the bailout point.
I like bailout points.
Yeah,
Like,
I know you
if
do.
let's
I
have
know.
an option to bail.
You got the belt, you got the suspenders, and you got the parachute. Okay.
The hardest thing about the bailout point is, and this speaks a little bit to, you just start going down a road that at some point, to your comment just earlier, right? We've gotten here through discussion. And if you try to stop it when you get to that bailout point, which is what I'm kind of leaning on, right? Then there's the force of will behind you that's gotten to you that point that then is sort of used to rope you in and keep you going, right? And so personally, I'm okay moving this forward because it's infrastructure, not just South and Wood.
Me too.
Okay? It's infrastructure.
And that was part of a great discussion
We
that
don't
we had
have
to do that. Yeah.
and we don't have to issue 950. We can issue 500.
Yeah, we can go up to, as you
We
said.
can go up to
Yeah, that was a
950.
good point you made,
okay?
thank you.
But I just want everybody to understand that this is a vote not to say we're issuing 950 for South Wood. It's a vote to say we have the
950.
capacity, we've spent the money to get to this far.
Yeah.
I'm okay bringing it forward, but I completely agree. Let's get the finality of that long-term capital plan done, because you know when it comes to the budget.
And thanks for bringing it back to the board.
Right.
I can't tell you how much work
Okay,
they've
so
already
let's
done.
make a- let's
Cannot
make a
even begin to
motion.
tell you, so.
I'm going to make a motion
Okay,
to
you're on
move
roll.
forward this.
Wait, oh, seeker.
Oh, seeker.
Okay, so let's do seeker first and then.
Which is basically
Oh my
determining
gosh, I'm going to make a motion.
type 2 action. So, but normally Dorothea could just certify the minutes of the motion that it's a type 2. We're not sure if the bonding people are going to need an actual written resolution.
Okay.
So that's why I did the actual
Okay.
resolution.
Well, it can't hurt, right?
Got it. Thank you.
We can't do seeker until that's done.
He's done it.
Oh, he's done it already,
Yeah.
even though we don't know how much. Okay.
No, the resolution for
The
seeker.
resolution.
Oh, for seeker.
We're doing seeker.
Okay.
Yeah, got that.
Anybody want to see the resolution? I think it was sent out.
Yeah, it was sent out.
Yeah, it was sent out.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the seeker as presented, classifying this as a type 2 action.
Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next up,
All right, let's see if I word this right. I'd like to make a motion to authorize this document to bond up to $950,000 specific for real road-based infrastructure.
does
Does that make sense?
Yeah, Jeff.
Interrupt, Dorothea, do these have to be done? I notice there's a lot of documents in here.
I provided all the documents. There's
We
a,
gotta go to each one.
there's a letter from Tim McGill on.
I know, I saw
the
that.
process. There's the,
The local finance law, section 30.
your actual bond
Yeah, you have to amend,
resolution.
There's an 81.
Can I read the actual?
Yeah.
The one thing, the bond resolution dated February 13th, 2024 of the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Pittsburgh, New York, authorizing general obligation serial bonds to finance street improvements within the village, authorizing the issuance of a bond anticipation notes in the contemplation thereof, the expenditure of sums for such purpose, and determining other matters in connection with it.
That sounds good.
As stated.
You make a motion.
I make a
to-
motion as stated.
Does that cover it? I got nothing.
I abstain.
Oh, that's not fair.
I don't know, this isn't my work.
I know, we're sort of,
So the bond resolution was subject to the premises of.
well, you read it, and she's accepted it as a motion, as stated.
Yeah, it's all subject to.
Right.
Stay
So-
the same permissive referendum, nothing's final until the
Right.
stick.
Okay, so then is there a second?
Just hold up for a second.
Okay, we're going to hold up for a second. We don't want a second.
It looks like there's a resolution to approve. And then, so I think you're voting to approve the resolution.
That you just read.
Yeah, so it's resolution, right?
Right,
Okay.
Yep. The rest are notices that I'll be putting out to.
right, it gives you the time frame.
Yep.
So does her motion stands? Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Abstain. The reason I'm abstaining is because I really want to have the information from me on Friday, so that on Tuesday I have the information I would like to have about the long-term
plan before I move forward.
Okay.
Okay?
Trustee Lightgev.
No.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
No. Two-thirds vote. It requires a two-thirds vote.
It is a two-thirds.
No, not two-thirds.
Yes.
Wait a minute. I saw something up there.
Yeah, it is.
Two-thirds of all members. Yep. So we'll have to take it up next week.
Okay, so that
So
happened.
Lily, you got your wish.
There you go.
There you go.
That's your wish.
See?
Fail.
You manifested that.
What happened? 4 out of 5, yeah.
It's a two-thirds.
It's two-thirds of the full membership. It's not even of the quorum.
All right, well.
Okay, we move on quickly.
We're gonna look at it.
We move on.
Public hearing.
We move on, yes, indeed. Item number 3, public hearing, 2 hours after 6 PM. Proposed local law to override the tax levy limit.
Look at our public. Thank you,
Go
public.
team.
Well, certainly there's people online.
Other
Go team
people
online.
They're holding strong.
Oh, they're holding strong, thank you.
Okay, so
Oh, this is freezing.
this isn't anything new. This is the proposed local law to override the tax levy limit. We have done this every year just to ensure, whether we raise taxes or not, that we're secure if anything came back with a comptroller review, that we didn't go over the tax limit as allowed by.
And this is per the recommendation of NICOM?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's done, it's just a backup document to protect you in case of assessment or something wasn't
Something goes-
calculated right. It could be anything.
When is the latest this has to be approved by?
This has to be done prior to the adoption of the budget. We have always done it ahead of time just to have it done, so it's not forgotten.
Can we leave open the public hearing for a week and?
We're going, and I'm going to let Turner talk to this.
You don't have to leave the public hearing open, but you certainly can. So this is an unlisted action for seeker purposes. It requires a short form EAF. The options are, you have to open the public hearing if you want. If you don't want to have to publish again. So you have to open the public hearing. You could take public comment and then close the public hearing, complete seeker at the next meeting, and then vote on this without holding the public hearing open. And you can, you're only required to have a public hearing. You can close it and then decide it at any time
Right,
based
later.
on how much you
Yeah.
were in the public hearing.
So let's open it.
Yep.
We already,
I've waited, before you've wasted the money of publication, all the rest.
all right, I'm gonna just open it. We already said
Yep.
that.
Is that a motion?
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I'd like to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on the matter of the tax levy, of the override of the tax levy limit? Fast breaking news. Anybody online? Is there a motion to close the public hearing? Or
make a-
to,
Well, actually,
or to keep it open?
I'd like to keep it open.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, either way.
If I may, I think that, we've seen so far a tentative budget that was not balanced from the treasurer, and I appreciate that. I know that this is somewhat administrative and procedural, that we kind of tend to do this every year. It's a low tax cap, the rate of inflation today that was listed was like 3.1%, and this limits us to 2%. So I can certainly see the reason that a lot of people would override this. Given that we only have to pass this before the budget, which I believe is due May 1st, I think we've got quite a bit of time, and I would just leave the public hearing open and consider this once we look at the spreadsheet next week or whatever.
I would like to just make one correction. We didn't give you a proposed tentative budget. We just gave you everything that we would put in the budget. Okay, so that was not a tentative budget at all. And that was made clear at that workshop, yeah, thank you.
If the board chooses to leave this open, you need to set a date and time to continue the public hearing.
Next regular meeting?
Does it cost us money to do this?
No.
Okay. great.
Okay,
But
so
for
let's
you.
leave it
What's my
open
bailout?
until
When's our next?
Yeah, when's the-
27,
February 20th.
20 is the budget.
Oh, God,
the workshop, budget
we're here.
workshop.
I'll make a motion to leave the public hearing open until our next full
27.
board meeting on
The 27th. of
February 27th
What time?
Maybe what
at
time, sir?
5:30.
6
PM, 6 PM.
I second, okay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, let's see, where are we here? Next up, it's the proposed rental registry law. Ah, yes. Okay. Thank you to Jeff and to Steve for working on this.
Yes, thank you. This is well
Yep.
needed. So I have a couple questions. Who can I ask? Jeff?
I'm the lone target.
The lone target, okay. So.
He's in the hot seat.
On this, I think. The second page, at the very top, we talk about residential rental property. And it says, real property or any portion of such real property which is occupied or used for habitation by a person or persons other than the owner or the owner's immediate family. Immediate family. So is there a definition of what the immediate family is? Because that comes up a lot. And how are we defining immediate family?
If you do not define it, it will be the common or accepted definition, whether it is.
Which is what? I don't even know what immediate family definition is nowadays.
Hopefully pretty wide open.
Yeah, it is, it's changed, I know.
Because,
But
I mean, is that mean,
Well,
is it a grandma's
commonly accepted in
boyfriend's
the court of
brother is
law?
immediate family?
What?
Grandma's boyfriend's brother? Is that immediate, like, who's immediate family? That can be,
I mean, I think immediate family is probably defined somewhere in the law as,
nuclear family, mother, father, children, grandma, grandpa?
how would you like to define immediate family?
Well, I think we need to define
I've got
it.
one.
Dave's
I've got one.
Google.
This is according to New York State Consolidated Laws. This happens to be the public health law, PH 238 definitions.
Okay,
So I figure they're pretty close to whatever New York State's accepting these days. It shall include the spouse, birth and adoptive parents, children and siblings, step-parents, stepchildren, and step-siblings, fathers-in-law, mothers-in-law, brothers-in-law, sisters-in-law, son-in-laws, daughters-in-laws, grandparents, children, and you were once removed twice. No, never mind.
And household pets?
Yes.
Yeah, household
And
pets. No,
Household
but
pets,
It
okay.
is
so it's pretty,
pretty much
Wide
generationally
open.
very wide.
So the question is, do you want something like that, or you want something different?
I think that's fine.
Was it, where'd you get that? What's the
What's the-
public health
This is
law?
section 238 of the public health law in New York. Does anybody have a challenge with any of those things?
I don't.
Right? There's no boyfriends or girlfriends or anything else.
What else?
all right, one.
So that means, just to be clear, that means we're adding the definition of immediate family.
Well, I don't know, I mean, do we need to?
I don't think.
I mean, it's so wide open, we might as well not,
Yeah.
because it's so wide open, it's everybody and their brother in that definition.
What do you think?
I think you should add a definition.
I don't think it would.
That way you know exactly, no. Yeah.
See, I would have thought that immediate family is much more restrictive than that is. So
No,
I,
I'm not surprised.
really?
You can make it much more restrictive.
Well, I don't think I need to spell it out, I just don't want to encourage.
If you want it more restrictive than that, you should make it more restrictive.
So here's the challenge, right? If you have a very close relative, any of those that I just referenced, and you own the property, and you would like to have your family live in your house,
And charge them rent?
sure, and charge them rent. But should you be subject to the same permitting process as somebody who's renting it to non-family? Because technically, they could gift it. They could gift the rental, and then they could gift the money back in the rent. I mean, it's, because you're within the family, it's fairly
I think it gets a little sticky.
It does get sticky, that's what I'm saying, do we,
I think
since
you
it's
just-
so wide open there, I don't think we really
Well,
need to.
I don't know. I think it's sort of who you invite to the wedding.
That's right.
I think you're okay having it be pretty wide open.
Yeah, I mean, then just leave it. 154-5.
So I'm not doing anything.
Well, hang on though, but I mean, you did say, let's just sort of nail this down. I mean, if we put that definition in, it is clear. It is clear to anybody reading this, as opposed to, well, you know,
Easily enforceable.
my third cousin twice removed
It's my
is
family,
my family.
my immediate family.
But, so here's the other one, right? This is just common definition, not New York State and veterinary law. The smallest family unit, including parents, siblings, spouse, and children.
Okay, see, so that's what I thought of as immediate family.
It doesn't include mothers-in-laws and fathers-in-law.
Right, and stepsisters,
Yeah, but
and
like my
stepbrothers,
nephew
sisters.
lived with me. I mean, I don't know.
Right, and if you charge them rent, he's family, do you really want to have to go through a permitting process as part of
I didn't
family?
I mean, he had my apartment.
Right, but like, if you have
Well,
something.
hold on. We're not talking about renting. We're
I
talking
know.
about if it is occupied.
Yeah.
Right,
we're
that
talking
means
about-
that they would not have to go through the registry
Right,
if it was a stepson's stepbrother.
Yeah.
that's right.
Right.
And that, to
I don't have
me, makes it way too, not restrictive enough. I think we need to know
I don't know, I just think sort of the circumstances and instances of that.
of that happening,
Yeah,
I would,
I don't know.
part of me just simply says, one of the things we're trying to create is
something.
family
I guess we could
residential
start with
community.
this, and if we see that that's a problem, we can go
We can
back.
always add it in this. too.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm scratching out immediate family.
Uh, No.
No.
I'm scratching out a
Oh,
definition.
defining,
definitely,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yes.
Okay, what else?
Okay, 154-5, information maintained by the owner. Is there a time period? The owner shall maintain a confidential record of the names, addresses, and telephone numbers of all tenants of residential rental properties. How far,
How far do you want?
well, should we specify that?
Yeah.
I mean, does it have to be just like in the last 2 years?
It
Or
can
can
be
we go back?
whatever this board decides.
Can I ask you a question?
I hope so.
Can we, thank you, can we have the prior year's names, addresses, telephone numbers of tenants provided with the subsequent year's permit? So here, we're relying on the owner to maintain those records for as long as we ask them to,
Which we don't have in there.
which there's no duration by which they're required to do that. I guess it would assume forever,
Well,
perhaps.
hang on, why wouldn't it just be for the duration of the lease?
But it doesn't say that, it says. the
I
owner shall maintain-
understand, but as an amendment to that, why else would you need, they need,
Well, so I think what
I
this is.
mean, where are
this
we
is
going
a-
with it? What is the intention of this?
Right.
I think I would think the intention of this is so that there is some documentation should the code enforcement officer have a question.
So, but they only would need to retain these names for the duration of the lease for the tenant.
Now with the short-term rental, you're going to want to be able to look back.
Well, you have to sign short.
Oh, with a short term,
Right,
yeah,
so
you're
you're
right, it's
creating-
covering everything.
Yeah.
Right, I
Not
see. what you-
short-term rental.
No, no, no,
This is
it's
just-
it's all rental.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, it seems to be that the trustee code was on the right track. It should be like a 3-year or a 5-year period.
right,
So just come up with a
I
time
say
frame.
5-year period.
So let's take that though and say at the moment that you need it, nobody's going to have that lying around, especially for short-term rentals. And so why wouldn't you just have it be a condition of the next year's permit? If you're a long-term.
Oh, just roll it forward?
Yeah, if you're a long-term renter, right, and you've got a tenant, and the next time you submit that annual permit, hey, who rented your place for the last year? You put one name, address down. If you're a short-term rental, you provide the list of everybody who
For
rented
the
it.
year.
For the year. And then we have record of it here
Right, so
rather
you're
than
saying a
there.
year. You're saying a year.
Is that an invasion of privacy? I don't
Well, it's a
think so.
confidence, first of all, it's kept in confidence. It's
Okay.
not, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually stated, and I think that's important, but
Good.
So you're stating a time period, you're saying a year.
And then we have it here. They don't have to keep it.
to be
after that.
renewed every year
Well, all the permits are renewed.
with the permit, no, but to revised,
Yeah, so
renew it.
Revised yearly.
So you can put that on the form that they have to fill
Yeah.
out.
I think it's a simple, because if we're asking them to
It's
do it,
less
they already have it.
burdensome. It's less
Okay.
burdensome.
Yeah,
All right.
right, they don't have to.
No, but you just
So-
put it on the
It's a
rental.
year.
Yeah,
Right,
You put it on the application.
Who rents a new place?
You don't have to put it in code.
right.
Put it on the application, says attached is the rental register from last year.
Yes. So then what I would suggest is keep this in there and just say the owner shall provide as part of the permit the confidential record of names, addresses, and telephone numbers of all tenants during the prior 12 months.
The owner is only required to maintain it. I mean, why do we need a record of their tenants?
I don't really.
I don't understand
I
that
don't want
at all.
that.
I just thought it was like, if you need it, they have it. I think that's
All
a
right.
little invasive.
Well, then if you don't need it, we don't need it, you just kick it all out. I think it's one or the other.
Yeah, I'd just as soon not have it.
And actually, what do we care? It's his property.
They have a lease.
He would want to know who's less, the names, what do we?
I think it's a.
We go to the owner.
Overreach.
We go to the owner anyways, we're not gonna go
What do you
to the
guys
renter.
think down here? You're a little quiet.
I just don't want
It's
it. I don't think we
amazing.
need it at Village Hall.
I don't want,
Okay.
I don't
So
think
get
we want it.
it out of there completely?
I stand with you on that.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Okay, so tell them to keep it. Okay, keep it on their confidential records.
They have it
And
anyway.
Oh, it's on here, confidential records,
Yeah, and
okay.
expect it for how long?
Okay,
So
3
Justin,
years.
3 years?
Yeah.
All right, that's fine by me.
so we're gonna put a time period in there.
We're not gonna, but if we're not using anything, why do we?
Why do we need it?
All right.
Why do we need it, you guys?
I say just leave it,
I'm
then
right
just
at the
leave
end of
it, then just leave it the way it is. If the owner wants to keep it for 3 years, they can.
That was like, it's either all in or all out.
I don't know why we need this.
Let's
Just take it out.
All right, we're taking it
Take it
out.
out.
I think
Leave it out.
Take it
If
out.
we call the owner and they got a problem with the tenant, they better know what the tenant's
You'd hope.
name
Right,
is.
and it's their issue.
And we've had that happen on occasions,
Right.
and they know who their
Yeah, yeah.
tenant
Okay,
is.
great. Yeah, I thought we
We're
were
out
out.
to scratch out one.
Yep,
four, five,
that's
one,
gone.
4, 5.
Good.
Yep, that's
So
over.
either all in or all out, we're all out.
I mean, if they're not renting to anybody and they're just using it for money laundering, that's a legal issue that we wouldn't be involved with anyway, right? So
There you
We call the feds.
Hey, Stop it, 1547.
Okay,
Okay, so on 1457, one of the challenges that I have is this, once we take effect with this, there's 30 days.
Mhm.
There's no way Steve's going to be able to give a permit in 30 days if he has to inspect every single property.
that's what I thought that's
How
a
can
lot
we
of
write
time.
1547 and anything else in this code in a way where it allows Steve the liberty over a 12-month period to somehow spring this into existence for properties? Or how do we have this roll over time? Do we do it by district? Do we do it by zone? Do we do it by street?
Did he comment on that?
He did, he said he wanted to do it over 12 months, right? He does a little bit
On
at
the
a time.
stage.
Yeah.
There's no
you wanna
way,
phase
like,
it in.
if we launch this
Right,
as
if we
right
enact
now,
this, right, that's
then
it's not gonna.
we've got 30 days to do
So
it.
what,
It only says they'll file the application. It doesn't say that Steve has to issue for that.
oh, it's a
Oh, okay.
filing
Oh,
only.
Yeah, file, yeah, file.
Okay, so,
Can we do 90 days?
what, wait,
You're the one we got elected, so.
no, wait a second.
But it doesn't, what I'm saying is 30 days isn't, it was just a choice.
It's,
Yeah,
it's
I did-
the,
it
this
was-
has nothing to do with
Hold on.
Steve.
Can I give you
This is
background?
the owner.
This is just plagiarism.
Okay.
So you.
But there's nothing in the law that says it has to be 30
No,
days.
This is the application,
So it's-
this application is to be filed, Steve doesn't have to do anything, this is the application's being filed.
It's on the owner.
But to be clear, this board can change this however they want. This
Okay,
is
we're doing
their-
it. Okay,
Whatever.
all right,
Some people would
30
have
days
a word
okay?
for it that I can't say right.
I don't know why that isn't.
I like 30 days.
Can I throw
Yes,
this?
please do.
I kind of like the 90 days because I feel we have an obligation to notify all of, as much of the people we know are conducting these rentals. So that gives us the time frame to get the notice out and then give them time to respond. So I think 30
Maybe
days.
until we get a little more,
Yeah, I think 30 days is kind of tight to do the research.
Just 'cause it's
get
all new.
correspondence out.
To start it, we could.
Even if it's 60 days.
Start with
I think
90 and then we
give us a little
can
bit of
amend
notice,
it.
So we can
Alright.
get some notifications.
Okay.
So you want to bring it to
you
90 days?
made a good case.
Dave owes me flip about yours.
No, I know, that's fine.
You're the one that was.
Okay,
That's- That's the
115.
truth. Thing, you.
So we're doing 90 or 60?
90.
90 days, 90 days, okay, we can always change it.
All right.
I got 90 days.
Yep, that's what I
90 days.
have.
Twice.
And then we can amend it as needed, but.
Can we
it's a
stay on that
start.
page for a
Yeah.
second? Did anybody have anything for 154A, B, or C?
154.
154.
Oh,
Eight.
well,
154-A, A, B, or C?
I just had a comment, not that I'm going to change anything here, but when I was campaigning, walking door to door, I was surprised at some of the apartments in like there was like 4 and 5 apartments tucked into some of these houses. I couldn't believe it. So I think that we're going to find, Steve's going to start finding things
Yeah.
like,
Well,
and it was
Approved.
We'll see what happens.
I don't know if they approved, but they were very, like, people were tucked into like a closet in this one house, and it's like, okay, but I don't know.
Can we talk about C for a moment?
Which one, D?
C.
C.
154-8C.
All permits issued pursuant to chapter have a one-year term. Is there a way, or could we allow for auto renewal subject to inspection? So somebody has a long-term, or like somebody just has a rental, right? Doesn't matter, short or long, and they're permitted. And that permit, if they want to continue to operate it the next year, the permit on file springs to existence, it renews itself automatically. Steve then sees it comes into existence on December 1st, takes it, calls the landlord and says, hey, I got to come inspect the property. And if they don't allow him to, the permit's removed, but otherwise it just permits it to keep going. So that way the property owner doesn't have to file a new application or permit every single year, right?
What about the fee?
Right.
What about what?
The fee.
Well, you could auto renew it.
And the mechanism, we don't have a mechanism
to
do that.
You could bill it. So what it's doing is it's saying your application is valid. So your application's valid, and Steve's like, all right, I gotta come inspect. He goes inspects. He's like, okay, now I need my fee. And then once the fee comes in, he's permitted.
There's no difference between that and having somebody actually fill out an application.
Other than save the time.
Well, it's not our time.
I think
it's their
you
time.
want them to fill out an application just because you want to make sure their information stays current, the mailing addresses.
Right.
You get a lot of that happening with stores. So I think it's a trigger of making sure we're just updating.
Just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah.
We're good though. Might be simple the way it is.
Okay, I'm going to move 15410, next page, or is there anything else before that? Fees? We don't have in here the fee cost. Do we have to put in the cost?
No, it's going to be a
Okay.
fee schedule.
All right,
Yeah, we set a fee schedule.
This is a good point though to bring up, comment that I think, Justin, you had mentioned earlier, which is if it's a short-term rental versus a long-term rental, does that verbiage in 15410 allow for a different fee or tax? If in fact we do go down that road for short-term rentals versus long-term.
They'll change it in the short-term rental statute.
Okay, so then this is all encompassing and it can be different.
And then our fee schedule would reflect.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, look at 154-11C. A residential rental property shall only be occupied or otherwise utilized in accordance with the rental permit issued for that residential. Okay, so I was saying, how about somebody who has a one-year rental and sublets it or Airbnbs it?
I don't think we want subletting.
No,
Well, I'm saying
somewhere,
that's happened.
The permit that's being issued is for a year, and it says, yep, your rental property is okay. So this is, the rental property is being inspected.
Oh, so it's just an inspection piece, so it doesn't matter who's in it.
Right, and so you're just trying to keep track of who's renting.
What property's being rented.
And making sure that, because the rentals need to be inspected.
Not so much who's there, but what,
Right.
okay.
So it's not like a special permit, it's just.
It's also being inspected for.
Fire and safety.
Well, right, exactly, that too, but it's also being inspected for what Lisa just said, which is it being occupied by the correct number of people
Right.
for that building,
Unit.
approved for that
For
building?
safety.
Both from a fire perspective and from a,
Occupancies. number.
no, is this a double, a single, or a multi,
Oh, yeah.
You don't want somebody creating a multi where it hasn't been approved or it's not approvable.
Right. But the landlord,
It's going to be interesting.
in renting the property to a tenant, if their contract between the tenant and landlord is loose enough, the tenant could sublet it with the permit that the landlord got, or does these?
No, it's, I'm sorry.
I guess I'm asking is, in a subletting situation, does the first tenant need to get a permit as well to rent to the second?
No, it's been a year.
Because it's connected
already
to the
been-
property and the original.
It's already been
rental.
approved for a year.
Okay.
But the first tenant can't sublet it probably and then stay there.
Correct.
Right, so.
That would be our purview, but the decision for the first tenant to sublet.
Sublet is between him and the.
That's right. Okay. Along those in regulations, I was thinking, is there any benefit here to determine if it's a single family or multifamily? Why did I write that? Oh, with regards to zoning.
That's what Steve will figure out.
Yeah, so whatever's in the zone now, he'll figure out if that's actually being followed.
Right.
Okay.
And or whether it's a pre-existing non-conforming.
Right, okay.
I have 154.13B.
I got B too.
We got?
So the question is,
Which
Board of
one?
Trustees
Which one?
or 154-13,
Okay.
B.
B. The two in parentheses questions, is it the Board of Trustees or is it the ZBA?
Here's this, right?
PZBA.
I would say ZBA.
Oh, this is just the zoning board?
I would say, well, they're.
Oh, that's right, right now they're connected, that's how we identify them, but technically they're separate.
Technically, there's two boards wearing two different hats and.
So I say,
And the ZBA
zoning
is the
piece.
normal.
and I think that ZBA really wants some business.
Give it to the ZBA.
I mean, they need to do something, and that's right up their alley,
I
and I
agree.
just think that they should take it.
Yep.
Get it off our agenda. No, really, I mean, they are the
It makes
appropriate,
sense. It's
they're the
as a
appropriate
practical
board,
matter.
right?
Yeah,
To
no
do
one's
that.
arguing, there's no argument here.
So that's what I hope.
Okay, for the rest of it,
So both of those,
okay.
ZBA.
That's all I had.
And then penalties. I just have, they have a fine not less than
What
500.
line are you on? Hey, call out the
Oh, sorry,
line, please.
154-14, penalties for offenses A, and it's actually A, B, and C. Why are we giving a span of 500, no more than 1,500? Why don't we just pick one number? Why are we giving them a
Maybe one doesn't
sliding
work.
scale?
Maybe 500 is too low.
Because it's the judge will want that room to move.
Oh, yeah,
the
they
judge
usually
makes
like
this
a rate,
decision?
Yeah.
Oh, the
goes to
judge,
court.
judge
Yeah, so they
makes
get a
this
range.
decision. Okay, all right.
And depending on the
I didn't know the judge did it. Okay,
severity or whatever.
that's all I have.
Is that enough to cover the fee to actually take it to court?
Right.
If not, we should move it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Is it going to cover the fee?
Because I don't want to sit here and have somebody tell me, well, our costs are a little, it's too high to actually go get that money.
Mhm. That's a very good point, I never thought of that.
Well, first of all, speaking to that point, enforcement is not just about covering expenses. Enforcement is about, this is our code, and we have to show the world that we expect people to live by it. Sure. Okay. So the judge is going to look at this and say, does that make sense? Depending on what the violation is. This is just a.
Didn't follow the rules violation.
Right. But it's, the rules they're following are the code rules, the residency rules. I mean, you can make it bigger. I mean, you can certainly make it bigger. Can I go to court for $500 to prosecute this thing? No. But as long as you don't have a jail sentence attached to it, Steve can go usually to prosecute these things.
Okay.
But that being said, the fine can be whatever you want.
All right, and answer this question too while I'm thinking about it. The first, second, and third violation. Let's say somebody's operating a short-term rental and they're not permitted, and they do so 10 different unique weekends. Is that 10 different unique violations? Because we kind of found out about it, it's all one. Conversely, what if somebody doesn't have a permit and has a long-term rental for 6 months, and that's also not permitted? Is that one violation? So,
Something in here somewhere was, for the purpose, each day's continued violations constitutes separate additional violation. It's indeed-
each day.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well,
that'll.
you're given a time frame for the remedy, right? You can be given a time frame for the if it's not remedied within 3 days of notice.
Yeah, well, that's a different thing.
Yeah. I
That's
guess it
before
would
we get
be.
to court. Steve's
Yeah.
gonna do his whole CEO enforcement thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he's going to issue an appearance ticket, sporting deposition based upon how long the violation lasted and the number of violations that there are. And the judge will not, probably not go, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times $1,500 is $15,000.
Right.
I don't think he's going to do that.
But
She's going to do
the
that.
way this is written, they have the capacity to do
Yes.
that, but that's not how they would decide the fee.
Probably not.
Right. But it would lend itself to a minimum, and then we would probably settle for something less.
Well,
Or is
probably
this
not
not
settling at that.
Yeah, why would we settle?
But we're not settling. You don't settle.
Yeah, you don't
This is now in front of a judge.
This is, you can't settle. Well, you could. You could have a plea bargain.
All right.
How often does that happen? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about this.
I don't either, because I don't do a lot of
I know,
prosecution.
I know.
We'll see.
The way I'm reading
Yeah,
this.
we'll see, right.
This is a pretty
Stay tuned.
stiff penalty on a daily basis.
It is very stiff, and
And it would probably,
I think you will have 1 out of 10 violations get that far. Steve will clean them up.
okay, great.
All right, so,
What else?
Oh, I did have one question. Can we, within this code, have a requirement wherein the permit requests the intent of short-term versus long-term rental? So that we can know the intent and the purpose? Because I'm very concerned about housing and housing options in the village.
Very concerned about what I missed that.
I'm concerned about housing options. And I'd like to know how many rentals are there and what percentage is potentially becoming shorter term, which is less residential and.
Would that,
Steve is on top of that.
yeah, I was going to say, that would be,
Steve is on top of that because he's checking the services.
I understand.
All of them, or just all of the platforms?
so you're
I
saying on the
understand.
application, there should be a check? Is it long-term or short-term?
What I'm asking is, when Steve presents a permit to us, right, we approve it, the final text of the permit, right? Don't. or does
Oh,
he-
you mean the permit application?
Yeah,
Oh, the application.
we approve that final permit application. So at that moment, if we wanted it to have,
Represent
check the box,
short-term,
short-term or
yes.
long-term, what's your intent? Then we would request of it or require it then. It wouldn't necessarily be part of this code.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be on the.
All right, good.
Can I just clarify one other thing here? So if somebody decides to rent out their house for a weekend, short-term rental, do they have to come in front of the Board of Trustees to get put on the rental?
oh, for like a
registry?
single event or something?
Just like one time a year?
We should grant some number of days
I thought that would,
for owner occupied to where this doesn't apply.
Something like that. I mean, I'm just thinking it's pretty burdensome. if
Yeah,
it's only one
that's
time.
true.
What if
Shouldn't it
we,
be, if it's
And do we do that for
owner-occupied, you
special
don't have
events?
to come before them.
Yeah,
It doesn't
Hang
require
on.
a permit if it's owner-occupied,
nothing comes before the board.
Okay.
Well, we're not talking about owner occupied.
right? If you.
Oh, it would be owner occupied, right? Because
Well,
technically,
no.
you're still there most of the
Hang on.
I'm
time.
sorry, but the whole the entire application though, is that necessary if you rent out your room for a weekend?
It
Or
is
rent
here.
out your house for a
We're
weekend?
not regulating.
but we shouldn't, I think, how do we make an allowance?
If anybody found out.
Right.
why don't we do this?
Can't we just provide a carve out so that it?
Yes, I think we need to,
It's a
yeah,
great idea.
yeah.
How about we have a carve out that says for owner occupied property owners, there's permission to rent their property for no more than
10
15 days, 10
10
days?
days, right, per year.
I mean, if it's PGA, it can be for 2 weeks.
Right. What, that's why I said, unless there's a special event.
But I wouldn't want to sit around and like have people come in
I
and
would just
say.
do a limit of days.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah. Do we need to know that at all?
So, no.
If
but
it's
you have a law-
owner-occupied, it's like
I
having
think
your
it's an overreach a
in-laws
bit.
or something, isn't it?
I think
No,
you do.
you're
over
not,
on-
you're not asking your in-laws for money, are you?
Yeah.
But I mean,
Really?
do we really care if there's an eclipse happening and somebody wants,
So we can
I don't
just
know, for a
say
week,
if
for
it's for
3 days.
less
Right,
than.
no, we
I don't
really
care.
Right, and we don't
Right?
care, but we want to make sure that it's
Can
covered,
I-
so we don't
Can I
care.
ask
Yeah.
a question?
What?
I think what trustee Lickett was getting at is if someone wants to rent out their house
Mhm.
for
The eclipse,
10 days a year, or if you pick a number, 20 days a year, they do not have to file for a
Yeah.
rental permit.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So it would be more of a blanket,
Yeah.
just,
So-
you get,
These provisions shall only pertain to.
Right,
rental use
right,
more than
exactly.
15 days per
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
so we
that's
need to
good.
put that in here?
so can you grab that?
You would put it in the rental permit required section.
Mhm.
Right.
So go to what was 154.6 and will now be 154.5. That this does not apply to whatever, pick a number and I'll word it correctly.
15 days?
15 days per year.
15 and up.
Yeah,
Say
2
30
weeks.
if you want, I don't know.
15 days.
15.
So 15 days.
30 is a little bit long.
15 days is 5 weekends, right? Or 2 major events for a week at a time.
Yeah.
30 days is like a short-term.
Yeah, right.
30 is a lot, yeah. They can have a fire.
15 days.
20?
You know what, if somebody rents it out for 20
Do I hear
days,
25?
they're going to be fine.
Well, this is important because we are, as soon as we get into the short-term rental conversations, you are going to have residents who say, hey, what about the PGA? What about the PGA?
Oh, yeah, everybody will ask,
Right?
that's true.
Or what about some XYZ that comes, right? And you just want to say, doesn't apply as long as
we're going to do that.
Doesn't apply,
Decide
right.
whether and if-
So
Yeah.
I say
So
20,
this is-
so
this
20
is that,
days.
right there.
So
This is
say
that.
20 days. 20 days, it gives you
20?
2 weeks or
Sure.
5 weekends.
It's 5,
Okay, so you want to say 20 days?
20
20
days.
days.
20 days.
It's
Yeah.
Friday,
20
Saturday.
days.
That's 10 weekends.
Yeah, 20 days. Oh, that's 10 weekends.
That's 10 weekends.
Oh, so that might carve out short.
Oh, let's do this.
Okay.
Let's do, no, do 20 days, but no more than 3 contracts.
Oh,
That's too complicated.
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, just do a carve out.
So I'll say 15
Pick a-
days.
pick a-
15
pick a
days.
number
Whatever.
Between 15 and 20.
I'm on
15 days.
15 now, back to 15.
15,
Okay.
let's say 15.
Is that the consensus of the
And
board?
it really is not.
What do you think,
enforced-
Justin?
It's not
15?
particularly enforceable,
Ship it.
Yes,
but it offloads
15.
a resident.
My
That's
second
really what it
spreadsheet.
does.
15.
It lets people know.
Yeah.
That we get.
We're not here to micromanage.
If a resident goes to 16 days,
15, yeah.
what's going to happen? Oh, let me
Yeah,
think,
right.
nothing. Okay.
We're going to send it to the
Well,
judge
that-
for 25
in
minutes.
fact, Mayor, you make a good point. Pretty much all the short-term rental oversight is going to be resident-led,
Yes.
pointing something out to
Yeah.
Steve, and then Steve
Yeah,
goes
oh, yeah,
and
which it always
investigates,
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Okay.
people ask about enforcement, and enforcement basically comes down to residents calling.
It's eyes and ears on the ground. Okay,
Yeah.
what else?
Okay.
That's it. You're going to bring it back to us next week?
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks?
In your spare time. Okay.
No,
He does have other clients, I know.
no, this is not, this is perfect.
I think it's good.
That's a
You
good
know
one.
what you wanted.
Oh, I feel good
Okay,
about that one.
good. Do we
Okay.
have another look-see before we send it to
Yes.
public hearing?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes, we have, we have to.
Like, you're gonna need to look at the language that I come up with the carve out.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it would be a very simple change.
okay, so we need carve-out language.
Just set that to public hearing. I think you should look at it.
All right.
Okay, so item number 7, proposed local law for the exemption of volunteer fire and ambulance workers.
I didn't see anything. It wasn't in my
This is-
packet.
Volunteer firemen and ambulance workers are exempt from village tax.
Yes, so let me just explain what happened. We actually passed this,
I was going to ask.
Only if you have a local law that says that.
we passed that, though.
Right.
Yeah, I thought we.
That's what I was just going to explain. Hang on. I have an update from the
Okay.
governor of New York State.
Okay.
The state of New York has passed a law for this statewide. We already have a law in place, but the action that we need to take is, it's kind of like a mulligan. We just need to match our law to the state's.
Okay.
That's all this is. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
to match universally
Okay.
with the state's language. It's nothing more than that, because we've
Okay.
already wanted to do this. So that's all we're doing. So
Okay.
there would be a motion then to direct Jeff to draft this.
I'll
What
make a
does the
motion.
seeker designation requirement mean that we have to
Do we
do?
need seeker? Or
Yeah,
not?
I mean, no, it's,
Is that-
it's,
do we
well, You're going to see this on every
Yeah.
agenda item. The mayor thought it would be a good idea to remind the attorney
Okay.
to check whether or not.
Remind all of us.
Okay.
So this is
And
a.
this will be this will require short-term seeker. It's an unlisted action. So we will do that prior to
Okay.
adopting,
Okay, so we're all in agreement.
but not prior to drafting.
Okay.
Right, he has to draft it first. So the direction then would be to have Jeff just draft it to match the state.
I mean, it's going to happen anyway, right? Because it's a state law?
No.
Oh,
No.
Just.
No, it's only going to happen if you decide it's going to happen.
But the state has created
Are you sure Mayor, that the state has created a form statute?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got the
Yeah, all right.
information.
Oh, and the choice you have to make, which we should decide, is the choices are from 2 to 5 years of residency in the village.
Oh, that's right, the residency requirement.
Wow.
Oh,
And bear in mind, when you make the decision about whether it's going to be 2 or 5 years, the fire department is having a big problem with it.
I'd make it 2.
So it's their, your call, but they're having a problem recruiting, according to them, when they realized.
I'd make it easier to, yeah, I would.
More attractive.
Yeah, I definitely would. We're a small village, it's a volunteer fire department.
save a lot of money.
10%?
Something like that, I can't even remember.
10%.
Isn't it?
It's only a 10% reduction on the
Yeah.
village tax.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, right at 2
2
years.
years.
Yeah,
2 years.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, 2
Well,
years.
we save so much money on the volunteer force compared to other municipalities, like to not try to support that in some way.
Yeah.
Volunteer ambulance.
Yeah,
Volunteer.
And volunteering.
A lot of volunteering.
Were you going to do a motion for Jeff
I
to,
don't think.
direct Jeff to do?
Yep.
Do we have to make a motion to
You need
do
a
that?
motion?
They said
I
just
think
to
we
direct.
should.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
We've had a little lack of clarity on inclusion
Okay.
and on other stuff for them.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to advance a local law to establish the exemption of volunteer fire and ambulance workers for, I believe, the 10% of the local property tax. And Jeff's going to write that, and we'll take a look at it soon.
For those living in the village,
I'll-
2 years or more.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next up, proposed local law to establish energy benchmarking requirements for certain municipal and private buildings. And I believe this is part of us being a climate, is it the Climate Smart program?
Correct.
We have the 2 different programs, and I
Correct,
think
it
it's the
gives us
Climate
an
Smart.
opportunity to get more points.
We get more points.
What do we
Yeah, we
get,
get money.
what do we get points for?
We get points for taking actions as,
More green.
yep. to
But
be-
what
to-
what do the points do for us?
Hang on.
Give us money.
Going to finish my
Okay.
sentence, yep. So we are a climate smart community, and so any actions that we take, any projects, anything we do that are sustainability initiatives and better for the environment and the planet, because, thanks, Anya, because we're a climate smart community and we show out the record of our work, we get points, we accrue points, and we achieve different levels. So far, we've received $5,000 in grant funds that are not matching. We get $5,000 directly to put towards, again, more of our green and sustainable projects. So by doing this, we accumulate more points, and then the next level's 25,000?
20?
Or something,
Something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, we can go all the way up to over 100,000, and so anytime, if we do LED lights, if we do, it can be so many things. We just keep accruing these points to get us to certain levels for funding. So it's a great initiative. So.
How much
and-
time does it take, Zach? Sorry? How much time does it take for you to do this, the benchmarking?
We don't.
You don't even do it?
No, just when we move forward on making renovations, and if they're more green, we'll get points.
Yeah, the
And
things
Steve
that we
oversees
do
it.
to move towards
Yes,
this kind
more
of
sustainable, right.
stuff gives us these points to then
Right.
be a candidate for.
So my concern with this is that, does this kind of subconsciously strictly enforce us to make more green energy decisions, maybe when it may not be fiscally.
I can tell you this has been adopted by every climate smart
That
community.
was my other one I was gonna ask.
Yeah, in other words, this is the best practices.
Does the town
for
have
communities.
this?
Oh, yeah.
Does the town
Yeah, they're
on
almost to
here?
silver status, right?
Which we are as well. Almost, so.
No, well, we're going to be bronze. But
We
we're
have enough
close.
points to make us bronze
I know.
as soon as this is
We're very
established.
excited.
And then my other question-
Yeah, so-
Yeah.
What's the
Very
difference
excited.
between it being a law or an ordinance?
Nothing.
Okay.
It'll be a local law, we don't do ordinances anymore.
Oh,
Yeah, Justin?
So I'm just trying to understand what this requires. I mean, there's annual benchmarking that's required. So it's not just, my understanding here is that it's not just for new construction. So there is an added administrative burden on what we're doing here. And I don't know exactly what that is.
I think if Steve were here, he could fill you in, but it's really, you're just filing the forms, I believe. We have a portal. It's a climate smart portal that we access, and we put in all the information. In this instance, it'd be benchmarking for different projects that we're doing.
Yeah, a lot of it's in the definitional section,
Yeah.
to try to figure out what's going on.
So I guess I'd like an overview of what is involved in this annual process, because it's not, there's actually measurement of some kind of energy. There is something that goes on behind this, otherwise they wouldn't have us filing the forms. And with that, I guess if we're all on the same page that this is going to be beneficial, and, it's something the municipality is able to take on, then I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I did notice this also applies to commercial properties, and specifically ones that are bigger than 25,000 square feet. So what does that apply to?
Probably apply to
Del Monte?
Del Monte
Yeah.
and Spanish Street.
Yeah, those are the two biggest ones. I think that's what Steve said the other day.
Development.
But
What, future development too?
I want you to understand, this is geared to a positive outcome, to do this. In other words, we have our climate smart liaisons from the Finger Lakes Regional, what is it? I know, it's like a whole acronym. Anyway, they will take our information and help us fill out the forms through the portal. In other words, it's not as burdensome as you think, because they handle it all on their end. We just input the data.
I don't think there's anything punitive either if we don't.
It's set up
Calling
to,
it a benchmark, it's
Yeah.
just like taking that initiative to
Right.
do things that would be better or beneficial. But there's nothing punitive.
no, there's not
I
a
was gonna say,
downside per
it's-
se.
It's more of an encouragement.
Yes.
It's not restricting us. So for instance, when we've got the HVAC system coming up, are we
Mhm.
gonna, if we adopt
We'll get a
this, does
bunch
that
of
mean that
points.
we're gonna need to, well, if we go more sustainable, yes. But if we find out that, are we gonna be forced to do something that's more green, even though it's gonna cost us twice as much? I mean, is it gonna
More of
restrict
a
us?
pledge, that you are.
We're just trying.
Can I say
We're thinking
something?
about
I've
it. We're
worked with these
trying.
programs in the past, not quite as detailed as this in other states. And as I said, it's geared to a positive outcome. So if we, as a municipality, choose to take a positive action on a sustainable project, and
And we get points.
we get the points and we get the money.
But we're not.
There's no penalty.
Okay.
When I say geared to a positive outcome, it's an actual nomenclature that's used for programs such as this.
So in other words, we need to replace all the trucks. If we go electric, we're going to get a lot of points, right? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's all this is. That's all this is. And then they help us start gee, you had an oil furnace and now you have a newer technology, X number of points. They will help us with that for the benchmarking of that.
And this does not have to apply to private property if you don't want it.
No, it's-
There have been two versions, there were two versions of this one.
It's the one
So
that.
this is more like a pledge.
Private.
Yeah, right, like we're pledging.
Seemed a little bit.
We're going to try to be more
We want to do
sustainable.
better.
We accept this as something that we'd like to try to do.
And we all
It's
want
not
world
restrictive.
peace. Yeah.
Right, okay. So it's more of a pledge.
Setting some BMPs, to show that you are trying to do something and at the same time.
I'm sorry, but that just sounds like what we're talking about in terms of these environmental building goals. That doesn't sound at all to me like benchmarking, and it doesn't sound at all to me like what they're describing in this process here. So I'd like to understand.
You know, we need to have Steve then do that. We'll have
Yeah, can
Steve
we-
cover it. We're going to
talk
defer
about
this,
it
we'll
again?
defer
Yeah.
this, and we'll have
Good
Steve
idea.
cover it, because
Good idea.
what Steve does, and I know you're concerned about the administrative burden, it says, oh, we have to put in this report, but by the time the report is put together, all of the information is in the portal. I see where you're going with
Let's
that.
have
But we'll
Steve.
have Steve do that. So we're going to defer that, and we'll just put it on the next agenda, okay?
I think it's one thing to consider for ourselves and another thing to consider if we want to impose this on some of the biggest businesses in the village.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. All right, next up, multi-year capital planning, the
Anybody
RFP.
need the RFP that was received
Yep,
today?
yep.
I got
Did
it.
send it
I've
out.
got the email, yeah, that's okay. I'll pass it around then.
So my comment on that is if we, as I've heard, have all the documents roaming around, we have all the information, and we have all that stuff that we could do our own long-term capital plan. If we were to put everything together, and then we were to have, some of the board, who's very astute at doing that, came up with a draft, could we use this Donegan Group more as a consultant after we've done a lot of the legwork, so that we're not paying them hourly to do the legwork when we already can do it
So they could
ourselves?
review it
Yeah,
and
so that
vet
they
it.
can just kind of look at the final
Bless it.
project.
Bless it.
Somebody
Yeah.
Yeah, bless it and just kind
I've
of,
already got the email.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
because I don't think
I
we
would,
need to pay them to do the legwork that's already being done.
and I would say that's the best option, since we have so much work done.
Right,
And it's
We
an
put it
hourly rate.
together, they can look at it, it's an hourly
yes,
rate.
it's hourly rate, right, that's what I'm saying.
So,
So
maybe they'll take them
hours.
5 hours to go through it and say, you know what, or they might come back and go, oh, you're missing one key point.
Right,
And
right.
At least if, after it's all done and they put the final
Yes,
whatever on it, the board will be satisfied
yes, that makes
that we
sense.
have all the.
Yeah, I still like the
it's kinda
idea of using
Kind of like an
them.
audit.
Yeah, kind of like an audit.
They're doing an audit.
That's a good way to put it. Oh, this is an extra, I guess, okay.
Can we vote to approve? I mean, they're already our financial advisors.
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
make a motion to approve the bid and then begin the process of defining the scope with them?
Yeah, we would meet with them, go over everything and say, this is what we're looking for.
Here's where we're at. We want to keep it as low cost as possible, but we need your help on A, B, and C.
Yeah, let's help us vet this.
Right?
Yeah.
Together.
Okay?
Okay.
And then there may be some steps that they know about that we don't know about. Maybe they want to be there when we try to bring it to the public, right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the RFP and start the process of connecting them with the staff.
I second.
With this work.
That's good. And we're not going to just open up like an unlimited
No.
line.
No.
As long as we're judicious with that.
Yes.
assume we will
I
be.
think this is actually a better use
Yes.
of the consultant based on what you recommended.
Honestly, when they came to us and suggested the hourly rate, I was like, ooh, but then thinking about it, it actually gives us a little more control in the spending.
Yeah, but I just don't want them to repackage stuff you guys have done
No.
and give it back.
I
That
think
doesn't
we
make
meet with
sense.
them, go over where we're
Yeah.
at, and then they can tell us how
Yeah.
much more we need.
And would we be setting some kind of a budget with this too, to say like, hey, let us know when you hit 1,000 or a couple thousand?
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay, I will second so that we can have this discussion, just for the sake of discussion. I seconded
Yeah.
the motion. Now we're having the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Lily.
And I abstain.
No, I think it's a good process. I think, what we've received is what we could have hoped to receive, and honestly, I think we control spending at all
And-
points.
They, they know us and we know them.
Yeah. I think
So it's, they're not starting at ground zero here.
So we have a motion?
And a
We have
second.
Motion and a second.
Okay.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Could I just suggest that perhaps after we look at the spreadsheet together next week, maybe you could set up an initial discussion with them after that?
Yeah.
Because I feel like we'll have more information about junk.
Yeah, I'd rather have
Yeah.
as much done as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. we'll get you
I'll
ready.
reach out to them, let them know we're proceeding with them with the RFP, and we'll get together as soon as we're ready.
Okay, next up, item number 10 and the last item for this evening, Monroe County Hazardous Mitigation Resolution. And this is This is a resolution that's annual.
This was a resolution that somehow was missed last year and needs to be done, and.
So it's bringing us current?
Yeah, it brings us current, so we just want to make sure we get this resolution.
So this has been done every year.
Can I just ask though, so this references, so this specifically says we have a hazard mitigation plan in place.
Yep.
And we call that the Monroe County Hazard Mitigation Plan 2023 update, but it's like the Village of Pittsford Hazard Mitigation Plan that we've developed.
No,
right?
we're
Those
part
are
of the
by
county's
board.
mitigation.
It's countywide.
So I'm just trying to figure out, is this a plan that the board is expected to have reviewed? Because I have reviewed no such plan.
I think we signed on with someone to do it.
And are we covered under Monroe County because we're part of Monroe
Yeah, I
County?
think we're part of it, but we're just.
Yeah, so why do we have to do something separate?
Got to be part of the coalition.
Yeah,
That's what it is the coalition.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure this isn't like, hey, Justin reviewed a flood plan.
No, you no, you.
I will send actually, if you just search and you pull it up, it's like the second PDF, it's 1,000 pages or so, 1,200. Anyway, in there's about 13 pages of village response, where Steve Loft is the commissioner of this response. And he's got to answer all these questions, like what are you doing in the event of where are people going to stay if there's a hazard and all these things. And there's a few things where, frankly, we don't really have answers for, and there's a few things where they do. I'll give you an example, and this was something that popped up. Embedded in this is the Rand Creek, okay, interestingly. And in the Rand Creek, because that would be a potential floodplain. I don't know. But it has areas that are eroding due to soil and high water conditions. And so then in there, they identify like 3 different options, one of which is do nothing, the other one is redirect the creek, and the other one is rebuild it, right? But essentially, the way I kind of read through all of this, we've replied to Monroe County, we've given them what they have asked for. It may or may not be a great plan, but it's a plan. And one option of every plan is always do nothing, right? The one thing where we're pretty deficient is we haven't identified where in the event of a serious emergency where residents might stay or house, right? So there is a little bit of an open-ended, we haven't answered all the questions, but we could probably continue to provide them information.
I believe we have a joint plan with the town in event of an emergency.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
with Sutherland and the Spiegel Center.
Oh, okay, so it might have been embedded where.
That's another component that's in place.
Perfect.
Good
So,
point.
Justin, the way I kind of read through all of this, it's Monroe County saying, we've created a outline for you to go through and answer all these questions and come up with something that is reasonable and viable. And all we're doing every year is saying, yeah, we've done it.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. I thank you for calling my attention to that document too. I just pulled it up. I'm looking over it. I think in the future, when we send this around to the trustees, it would probably be good just to send a link to that document so that we can pull it up.
Great idea. Yeah. A little more background for everybody.
Skipping over
right?
it now, I don't have concerns about
Yeah, I
it.
put no time to read the Monroe County mitigation at this time.
It's 1,000 pages.
Okay. So I make a motion.
This is an unlisted action for seeker.
Oh, seeker.
I'm sorry, it's a type 2 action for seeker purposes pursuant to 617.5.
Make a motion.
Parens little c, parens 26.
Make a motion that this is a type 2 by seeker with all the added language from Jeff.
I second.
Okay. Trustee Lincoln?
Aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Aye.
Trustee Coe? Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Marshall?
Motion.
Aye.
We're almost there. Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, are there any member items?
Hold on.
And we had adopted.
Oh, we have the, oh, darn, I was so close.
I want to make a
Okay,
motion
we're almost there.
for the Village of Pittsburgh to adopt the Monroe County Hazard Mitigation Plan 2023 update. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Thank you.
Trustee Lincoln?
Aye.
Mayor Palmer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Now, member items. Anybody?
I just have one brief one. Actually, let me just pull it up here one second. So we've had a couple of situations where the applications that come to us are not necessarily complete. And in talking with Justin Leedstrom, he actually had a suggestion that I thought could be pretty reasonable. I think we have a, Austin, see how you.
It's like Mardi Gras.
And what he was mentioning is that, I think our building inspector has a good relationship with the applicants. And in forming that relationship, it might be easier to delegate to somebody else reviewing the checklist of the required materials. And that can be done entirely administratively, without respect to who the applicant is, whatever the relationship is with the part of the process that Steve is involved with. It's something extra for perhaps you or somebody else on the staff, Dorothy, to look over the checklist.
Alexandria.
Yeah, no, I think
It would
we're,
be Alexandria.
not to jump in, I think we've been trying to delegate that to Alexandria as she's learning both boards to start going through the checklist and making
I
sure.
think she's finally really getting more up
Yeah,
up
no,
to
we are
speed,
working
because
on
I
that.
agree with you.
So that's something, okay, great.
Yeah,
Yep, we're working on that.
thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very
And my
much.
second member item is to thank trustee Lanfair for the York pepper.
I'm not recording that in minutes.
Oh, come on.
Now that I got one, I'm.
All right.
Actually, better make a motion before Dave thinks of something.
Minutes.
Okay, I make a motion, we adjourn, is there a second?
Minutes.
Oh, minutes, we're so close, minutes.
There's just one correction, I called
Oh, wait.
regular minutes.
Hang on.
Just make sure it's heavy. Oh, yeah, you can go.
No.
Thanks, Zach.
You guys aren't staying for minutes?
Thanks, Susan.
I like your hair, Sue.
I wasn't here, so I
I like
can
your
say.
haircut.
Yeah, these were actually special meeting minutes. It was a regular meeting that was moved to a special meeting.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the one correction I mentioned.
Is there a second?
No, second.
Roll call?
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
Aye.
Trustee Coe abstains. Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
What else?
I got nothing.
Motion to close.
Okay.
Second.
Oh, geez, that was good. You just.
Roll call.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev. Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay,
Good
thanks,
night, all.
everybody.
Yay.
Happy Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's
Oh, that's right, happy
That was our year.
Valentine's Day, you guys.